We're going to call the meeting to order. Today is Monday, October 16th. It is 9 a.m. All council members are present, including town manager, town attorney, and town clerk. If you please rise for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
We thank you for this time and for this beautiful day. We ask to be blessed with wisdom as we discuss our strengths and our weaknesses. Help us to work as a unified team as we listen politely to others' point of view, celebrate our diversity despite our differences, and boldly steward Fort Myers Beach towards a bright and healthy future as we work together on our shared mission. Amen. United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next is approval of the final agenda. Is there a motion to approve the final agenda?
So moved.
We've got a motion by Councilor King. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Veach. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Next is public comment. Madam Clerk?
First up, I have Scott Worth, and after Scott will be Ron Fleming.
Morning, Chief.
Good morning, Mayor, council members, public. Thank you for the minute to speak here. Not a position I thought we'd be in a few weeks ago, but this is where we're at nonetheless. So a couple Fridays ago in the evening time, I got a call from Representative Botana, and he informed me that he would be submitting local legislation to impose a merger of the Fort Myers Beach and Bonita Springs fire districts. When I asked Representative Botana why, he stated with no specifics, he thought it would be better for the two communities and it would save a few bucks. Neither myself nor the Bonita chief were contacted ahead of time, asked to sit down, have a meeting, talk about the idea, work through any of the nuances. So this was done without any collaboration from either of the districts. The first draft had very few details on how the merger was going to happen. What it did say was that on October 1, 2024, all the assets and liabilities of Fort Myers Beach would be handed over to Bonita Springs, and all the areas that the fire department covers would be handed over to Bonita Springs. The biggest problem with that first bill and the updated bill that's come out is it does not give the will of the voters. It does not give this choice to you folks. The way it is written right now, you'll never see it on a ballot. It's going to be done at up in Tallahassee. We were told the names on the truck would say Fort Myers Beach, but that was about the only give that was in this. Florida Statute 189.075 explains how mergers are supposed to happen when they're imposed. It calls for a merger plan to be in place. It calls for that plan to include all the nuances of what it takes to operate an organization, addressing governance, operations, administration, contracts, and whatnot. And it also calls specifically for the voters to be able to have a say. If districts were created by referendum, it should go back to the people in the community to decide that. Where we stand on this bill, we stand in opposition of it at the fire department for the reasons I've talked about. Something like this should be started with a feasibility study. That feasibility study, if proves to be valid, then a merger plan created, and finally put in front of the people for their say. If those things were to happen, this would be something that we would be able to consider, but to date, even with the updated resolution, none of that happens, and it certainly isn't coming to you guys for a vote. The district's a well-run, financially stable, responsible organization. It's provided professional fire, rescue, EMS, and transport services to the community since 1949. This merger serves no public purpose. It subverts the home rule of our community, and the manner and haste with which this legislation has been created and thrust upon us is reckless, and it clearly illustrates that this representative's complete disrespect for those he swore to serve. I'm asking for you guys today to support us in opposing this legislation the way it is written. As I said, if Representative Botana will conduct the study, go through the proper steps as outlined in Florida statute, then we're standing ready to do what's best for this community. I appreciate your consideration, and I can answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Ron Fleming. After Ron Fleming will be Jennifer Gordon.
Good morning, I'm Ron Fleming, Mr. Mayor, council, staff, public. I'm here today to address the hostile takeover of our fire district. Both we and Bonita Springs were notified after business hours on Friday, October the 6th of this plan. Neither chief had an opportunity to discuss the proposed plan with Botana since he told them he was going to be on vacation for 2 weeks and would be unavailable until today, which is the day the bill is to be filed. Mr. Botana was just here on the 1-year anniversary of the hurricane. He was on the stage with Chief Worth. Botana said nothing to Worth. Botana's plan is for Bonita Springs to seize all of the assets and liabilities of our district. His plan will be filed without providing any statistics to the savings that he claims will occur. He knows that he needs to show us his findings, research, etc. He has no supporting documentation or analysis whatsoever. This bill is dangerous as written. Mr. Botana infers that the Fort Myers Beach Fire District is inefficient. He stated, he has been quoted as saying, the storm brought things into perspective. What does that mean? Please explain yourself. I've texted and called Mr. Botana at least a dozen times. I've called both his state and local office asking them to have him call me. He has not. He is ignoring a constituent who has questions, which he has asked for. I believe that this district accomplished the search and rescue as efficiently as possible after the hurricane because of our district's local knowledge, ability to assist and coordinate the many outside agencies. Now, some background on myself. I have a master's degree in public administration from the University of Dayton. My thesis was an analysis of the then new state law codifying public sector union contract negotiations. I'm a graduate of the fellowship program from the United States National Fire Academy. In 1974, I was appointed to the Dayton Fire Department, Dayton, Ohio, where I proudly served for 37 years. Dayton was then a large 500-man fire department. We were very busy. I've been awarded, I have received awards and unit citations. I've been injured and hospitalized with injuries suffered in the line of duty. I served in both administrative and operation duties. For 20 years, I served as a district chief on the street. I was the authority who had jurisdiction of all things at my emergencies. I have commanded hundreds of fires and life risk emergencies. I, along with my crews, experienced much. The same is true for my crews today. Firefighters have a passion, a life to serve in a life and death service provided by dedicated professionals. I understand of what I speak. Mr. Botana does not. He refuses to answer questions. Because of all that I have stated, I believe that this bill should not be passed as written, and I'm asking you for a resolution opposing it at this time. Bring it back next year. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Jennifer Gordon.
Good morning, council community. I'm Jennifer Gordon. I'm the DVP of Local 1826 District 3. I represent the floor members, the firefighters, and the civilian inspectors on Fort Myers Beach Sheriff Department. I am up here to also oppose the bill that Representative Botana has placed in front of us, it takes the will of the people out of the equation. Since 1949, Fort Myers Beach Fire Department has been providing service to this island, voted in by the islanders, by the community. We're proud of the community that we serve, and we want to continue serving this community as your small town Fort Myers Beach Fire District. Representative Botana's bill that he has proposed eliminates a huge piece of Fort Myers Beach fire history, of Fort Myers Beach history. We think the beach has lost enough. We would like to see a study done to prove any benefit or cost savings that could be provided by a merger, and that the merger proposal be given to the people. As the fire district, we're involved in the community. We want to remain involved in the community. We're proud of the community, and we love seeing what's happening on the beach and the redevelopment, and we want to be part of the continued recovery of the beach. This is your town. This is your fire department that was voted in by special acts back in 1951, where the first charter was made for the department. And I believe that in the future, as the town goes forward and grows again, that the people should have the vote after a study is done to decide whether you want to maintain your fire district or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Steve Johnson.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, and staff. My name is Steve Johnson, and I'm an elected commissioner for the Fort Myers Beach Mosquito Control District. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit about that today. We believe we are also under the same initiative from Representative Botana. However, all of our requests, although we've read in the newspapers and news that we are amongst the districts that will be affected by mergers, we have not had the courtesy of a return response from the representative to provide us with a draft bill. Like the fire department, we will be celebrating our 75th anniversary in 2024, and we've served the island then for quite a while. Our operations were obliterated, I will admit. However, 1 week after the storm, we were back to serving our constituents 1 week. The district focuses on larviciding, which is essentially using our institutional knowledge to regulate breeding sites on the islands and in the mangrove, the bays. This helps us to avoid using adulticide, which is the spray, which is the clouds that we used to follow on our bikes back in the day, which I wouldn't recommend anymore. And it's a much less intrusive and safer way to treat mosquitoes. The merger with Lee County Mosquito Control District, which is the largest district in the state, there are 15 special taxing districts, would increase your millage rate by 109%. So they charge over twice what you're paying now for what we consider a much less service. Although they are much more sophisticated than we are, we provide a concierge service. For example, following the storm immediately, we've identified all of the derelict pools that are on the island, of which there are over 500 that are just potential absolute breeding grounds for mosquitoes, and we've been managing those. Again, you would not receive that type of service from Lee County because we would be just a small speck. We've always maintained in our charter that mosquito issues are not a issue we'd like on a tourist island or ever to become a negative issue for our guests. And so today I'd really just like to bring to your attention that we do believe we are under this. We still can't confirm it because we haven't had the opportunity to have verification from Mr. Botana's office. But we believe we have a compelling value proposition of providing significantly better service at less than half the price that it would cost you if this merger went through. And as Chief Worth had mentioned, there is a state statute 189.075 that provides a process in which to include the constituents, the very taxpayers that are paying for the service, to determine whether or not that's in their best interest. And as a minimum, we would request that that process is followed through. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
That's all I have signed up.
Is there anyone that would like to speak that did not sign up? Yes, sir. Come on up. No, come on up. Just state your name for the record, and you've got 3 minutes to sing. Hold on, sir. Wait till you get up to the microphone.
Oh, good morning to all you guys. I appreciate all you do for Fort Myers Beach. We've been here since 2000.
What's your name, sir? State your name for the
My
record.
name is James Cecil,
Thanks, James.
and I represent Admirals Bay on the island. And I inherited being in the president of the association because the other guy booted. But anyways, I'm taking the responsibility, and I have a good board of directors there, and we're trying to make improvements or repairs to our roofs and that, and we've run into just wall after wall after wall. Now, I just recently talked to the restoration company that's handling this. They've submitted that permit probably, I want to say, I'm gonna estimate, maybe 8 times, and it's been rejected. And the last time it was rejected, because you required an appraisal from us, and we had one done after the hurricane. The insurance company, they reappraised us in that, and they said we needed a new one. So we applied it. We paid the fee to a person who's very familiar with your request that you do here in the island, and he presented it to us. So we forwarded it to you, and it was rejected again because it didn't have your name on it. We weren't told that. And I don't understand that part, but so I depend on the reconstruction company, the restoration company to handle this. That's what we hired them for. We're also in litigation with the insurance company. And lo and behold, years ago, the board of directors never put money away for a deductible. So when this hit, we assessed, we brought ourselves on board. We've hired the right people. We've done the studies that the state requires from Thomas & Thomas, the engineering firms. We've done all this work, and I don't have a permit. Now, we haven't submitted a permit for the second building. There's 2 buildings on Admirals Bay there, if you're familiar with it. It's on Island Pines Way, across from Wyndham, what's ever left of it. So I'd like to know or find out why excuse me. I'm a little ahead of myself. It's in review now. I just got the text from the restoration company, Josh, and he said he resubmitted, it's in review. So what I'd like to do is go over across the street today and see how far we're into review. We probably just sent it a few days ago. But yeah, we have some monies now to start repairing the roof. We have to redo the air conditioning systems, the racks. We understand all that. Actually, I'm a retired carpenter. And actually, I'm a city council member in my town. I've only been there 36 years on it, bragging a little bit, but I appreciate what you do. And it's just like I said, my first meeting. So I would appreciate if you guys can help me out or can review it for me, or call somebody up and say, hey, where is this permit? And also I need to get some more restrictions from the town. They're not on the building anymore. So I can tell the unit owners, we have a resolution we passed that they can't rent and et cetera, et cetera.
Thanks,
So,
James.
and that's all.
The guy you're going to want to speak to is Frankie right there. So after the meeting, the guy on the far left, he can help you with all your questions.
Yeah, and I appreciate your generosity to let me come up here and speak.
Absolutely. Thanks,
Okay.
James.
Thank you.
Anytime. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak? Yes, sir.
Morning. My name's Paul Yearwood, and I live at 7,000 Estero Boulevard, Island Reef Condo Association. I am the board president, and I'm very anxious to get back into our home. We've been we formed a rebuild group that has been handling most of the issues that we have insofar as the rebuild goes. And unlike this gentleman, we've been a little more fortunate. We've also worked hand in hand with the council and members or associates of the council. We are in a situation where our pool is built in this EC zone, part of our pool. And I know you guys are aware of it. You've been working on it for the last couple of meetings. And I just want to say that as a resident, I'm a full-time resident of Fort Myers Beach. And as a resident, I strongly support property owners to make their necessary repairs to items that were built before the EC zone was established. And I'm just asking that any steps that we can do to expedite this process would be very helpful for the people of Island Reef Condo Association.
Paul, I don't want to interrupt you, but it's on our agenda today to speak specifically about what you're talking about. It's a second reading.
Okay?
If you want any of this on the record, I suggest that you during
Say
that
it
public
again?
comment, yeah, say it again if you want, because isn't that correct? In order for it to be part of the public record for that item, we can say it on.
Actually, he could finish now
Okay,
and y'all will remember it. And
Okay.
yeah,
disregard what I said.
Well, it's very easy to finish. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll close public comment.
Point of inquiry, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
We've been asked to do something by the Fort Myers Beach Fire Department, and I would like to bring that up. I don't know if now would be the proper time or if in members' comments or,
I certainly am not opposed to it. I know that they've got a very busy jobs and I don't want to have them sit here till the end. I did, if everyone is okay with that, we can move forward and discuss that, proceed out of order. Is that okay?
Great.
Are you
Fine.
okay with that, Becky?
that would be a great idea.
Okay. So before we start, Counselor King, if you don't mind, I did receive something from Representative Botana over the weekend. I'll read it and then it's available if anybody wants a copy of it, but I'll go ahead and read it just so that everybody has the latest information that I've received. It says the merger of Fort Myers Beach Fire Control District, FMB FCD, and Bonita Springs Fire Department, BSFD, would create a savings for the taxpayers of both the town of Fort Myers Beach and the city of Bonita Springs over the long term. Based on the merger between North Naples Fire Department and the Corkscrew Fire Departments, there are duplicate costs that can be combined when merging districts. As well, the purchasing power of a large district can also help reduce costs when updating, building, or replacing equipment and facilities. According to the U.S. Census report from July 1st, 2022, Fort Myers Beach has a population of 5,664, and according to the Lee County Property Appraiser's Office for 2022, FMB FCD has an available taxable land value of $4,441,626,771 to draw revenue from, though for 2023, the taxable property value has dropped to $3,069,938,448 due to Hurricane Ian's damage. FMB FCD supports 3 fire stations and has a millage rate of 2.9851. The higher millage rate is due to building up the fund balance to compensate for hurricane damages. Once this is accounted for, the millage rate should level off to 2.500 based on the FMB FCD September 30th, 2021 basic financial statements together with reports of independent auditor. According to the U.S. Census report for July 1st, 2022, Bonita Springs has a population of 56,370, and according to the Lee County Property Appraiser's Office for 2022, BSFD has a taxable land value of $14,566,334,754 to draw revenue from. And for 2023, the taxable property value of $14,991,277,753, even after Hurricane Ian's damage. BSFD supports 7 fire stations and has a millage rate of 2.18 based on the Bonita Springs Fire Control and Rescue District financial statements together with reports of independent auditor for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2022. At first glance, The millage rate difference would appear to be caused by the property value available to tax versus the facilities and services the different districts provide. Though BSFD has more fire stations, on analysis of the gross number, the cost per station is 92% versus the cost per station for Fort Myers Beach. This was calculated by dividing the ad valorem tax by the number of fire stations, and the 8% is $936,250.88 of the total expenses. The difference could be attributed to the BSFD having more purchasing power as a large entity than FMB-FCD, as well as a larger tax base to support each fire station. The merger of these two districts would allow FMB-FCD to have a larger presence when needing to purchase and update facilities and equipment. The larger purchasing power and the merging of the duplicate work each district does would lower the costs associated with the districts, as seen with the Naples and Corkscrew Fire District in Collier County. There was concern from firefighters about their seniority and pensions. When the Naples and Corkscrew districts merged, those firefighters who were on the FRS system were allowed to stay in the FRS system and keep their seniority. Those in the 175 plan were allowed to stay in the 175 plan. Currently, the BSFD has an account set up for the FRS for the fire commissioners. The bill assures that Fort Myers Beach will have a representation because one member of the board will be required to come from Fort Myers Beach. And then there's a bunch of references. I won't go into them. There's 8 different reference points that are at the bottom from 2021 to 2022. Again, this is the clerk will have availability to get this out to anybody that wants to read it, but I just wanted to make sure I read that. So that was the latest information that I received from Representative Botana. So Mr. King, you brought it up. Let you start.
I would like to see us support our residents and the Fort Myers Beach Fire Department. I know what I've heard over the weekend was that the emergency services are very important to folks on this island, and Bonita Springs doesn't really have anything. So I think that would be a detriment. So I would like the council to support, again, the residents and the fire department against this possible forced merger. And not knowing, I think the chief alluded to it earlier, there's more information out there. I haven't seen it, so I don't know if he is proposing a study or not, but I know you're attending, I assume you're attending the meeting with the Lee County delegation on the 30th, Mr. Mayor, and I would like us to at least back our residents and our Fort Myers Beach Fire Department in that meeting.
Okay. Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Well, I too have heard from members of the fire board and have read as much as I can about this. I haven't heard from Representative Botana. I'm sure his motives are good, but as a former state legislator myself, and I say this respectfully, I can't imagine taking this kind of a significant policy initiative without the appropriate data and study to reach to reach whatever conclusion the data leads us to. I also can't imagine doing it without talking to all the principals involved. And so I would be supportive of the council doing a resolution before to urge Representative Botana before the legislation is introduced or presented, that the appropriate study is done and that all the various principals involved would be consulted and encouraged to be part of that conversation before the legislation is introduced.
Thank you. Councilor Woodson?
Yeah, I too agree with both Councilor King and Vice Mayor Adderholt. I mean, we have really taken a viewpoint of transparency. We work very, very hard to look at the process and make sure that there is a process for our constituents if they have an issue, if they want to get something changed, but there's a process to go about this. And I don't believe, my opinion, any of that was followed. I think if this is going to go forward, it has to go through the right steps, the right channels. But at this point, I would totally oppose.
Councilor Beach?
Well, I would say that I think there's I would rebut some of the things that were in the statement that Botana said. One is I think the using population doesn't really help on a town like ours where we have such a large transient population. So the idea that we need a fire department for 5,000 people would be a complete misrepresentation of what our fire department does. I also think that they talked about the rates. I don't believe the rates have gone up because of Ian. The rates went up years ago to try to increase the reserves for the new fire station, which is fiscally responsible. This was done with the library when they built the new when they expanded the library, and then after the library was complete, the rates went down. So I think that is not. I think comparing comparing the rates when they're trying to increase their reserves to what is going on in Bonita is a bit of a false indicator. I'd also say that purchasing power, which he indicates is a big carrot. We see in our budget all the time that we're constantly piggybacking on other contracts. That's the way a small town like ours, and I'm sure the fire department is likewise, manages to get the purchasing power by combining with other similar municipalities. Then one thing that's not mentioned too is we're a complex little island. We have our residents, we have old beach cottages, we have high rises, we have tourists, we have a potentially dangerous marine environment. We have a lot of different types of risks on our little island that requires a local knowledge that I think we get from a local fire department. Yeah, and it's just mentioned to me, and how to navigate our seasonal traffic. So with those points, I would agree firmly that we ask for a real study and not a back of the napkin kind of sketch of what the effect of this would be.
Thank you. I don't disagree with anything anybody has said. I've spoken with the chief and with some of the fire commissioners. I've spoken with Representative Botana about this. And I think we're all on the same page. We're all kind of, there's just not enough detail, not enough data to support one way or another. And you've heard the chief say today, if it makes sense, it makes sense. But right now we don't know if it makes sense. And I also would support a resolution saying we'd like to see this process move through the process to allow people to have their voice heard, as well as get some financial numbers and see if it really does make sense. We certainly don't want it to cost money to our taxpayers, and we certainly don't want to see a loss of service to our residents that need help in a timely fashion. So until I think we can see that hard data, it's just a little premature for myself to get behind it one way or the other, quite honestly. So I would support the resolution. Is there a motion to direct Becky to put a resolution together? I don't know how it can be done before we don't have another meeting. Is that something that can be done as a resolution, or is it something that we could put forth as a letter from the town?
Yes, my suggestion is that the council take a vote as to your feelings on this and authorize the mayor to sign a letter that I've written, and so that we don't have to wait until November.
Okay. Is there a motion? Because we have to do it as a vote, I suppose. Is there a motion to do exactly what Becky just said?
I would make a motion, but I would include in the motion using some of the rebuttals from his
Oh, absolutely.
letter.
Absolutely. It will be a well-drafted letter. Thank you.
And not to put you in an awkward position, Mr. Mayor, but I would like this expressed at the Lee County delegation on the 30th, if possible.
Something tells me there might be a few people there, including the chief. I can't speak for the chief, but I know.
But I mean, as a town,
Yeah, oh, absolutely. We can add it to our, we'll make sure it gets sent out to all the delegation. We'll also make sure that it's with us on the 30th when we present we have our time to present our appropriation requests.
And I would also just kind of add that if it is true that the mosquito abatement district is included and that joining with the county would double their assessment, I would include that in requesting. Because I know one thing we have, and I've seen this a lot when analyzing some of our tax rates, is we have high property values, which means if we're merged with a community with lower property values, that a lot more burden falls on us. That's one of the reasons why we can have a smaller taxable assessment for a mosquito abatement district when compared with a place that has lower property values in their houses.
Councilor Beach, you made a motion, didn't you? Was it you?
I did.
Okay. Is there a second? Did we get a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilor Beach, seconded by Councilor Woodson. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. So Becky, if you can work on that, get
Absolutely.
it to the council members so they can read it, then they can give Amy the okay to go ahead and sign it and move it forward. And get it to the chief as soon as we can.
Yes,
Thank
I will
you.
do that.
All right, back to the normal local achievements and recognitions. Counselor Veach.
Well, we're all wearing pink here. Well, at least partially. I just say it's what breast cancer awareness. And I'll just say, you know, personally, I've lost a stepmother to breast cancer. I have a sister who is a 15-year breast cancer survivor. I think this, you know, and before my sister, got breast cancer, she was very active with the Komen walks and all those activities. So I think the message here is, you know, get checked, you know, do the things you can do, because the sooner you find breast cancer, the better your chances are of survival. I'd also like to thank the Chasing Denver and the town and the businesses for the concert last night. It was a great concert and even better weather. I sat outside in the sun and didn't sweat. And that's pretty much it.
Counselor Woodson.
Well, Counselor Veach covered all of mine. I am a huge supporter of breast cancer awareness. I too am a 15-year survivor. And because I caught it so early, I think that's why I'm here now with no problems. So I do everything that I possibly can to contribute and support and walk and do all the things, not just for breast cancer, but for just about any kind of cancer. So I really appreciate that Talissa went on this movement to get us all in pink. Some people missed the memo. He's got his button. That's good.
Some people maybe don't own pink.
Real men wear pink.
I didn't. I'm not disagreeing.
And also, it was just a great event at Bayside Park, and kudos to everybody that was involved in it. I know there's going to be future conversations about more events and moving them to Saturdays during season. Hopefully people stay overnight. Hopefully they go to dinner. Although we tried to go to dinner and it was an hour and a half wait. So that's a good news. But no, everything worked out really, really well.
All right. Vice Mayor Earl.
Nothing additional, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Counselor King.
I would just echo what I've heard already. My mother was a breast cancer survivor. 1990, she developed it initially, and then later on, it came back and metastasized. But the remarkable treatments and the advancements kept her going for a long time. And honestly, she would fret about it, but I would tell her that breast cancer is not what's going to kill your mom, and it wasn't. But she was a fighter. And also, thanks everybody for the inaugural Bayside concert series last night. Special thanks to staff and our Culture, Parks, and Recreation Director, Jeff Hauge. Thanks also to the sponsors, Wahoo Willie's and Snug Harbor. And there may or may not be a video, there is, of a dancing mayor. And I'll just say, from one big man to another, nice moves, you're light on your feet.
I prefer to call it putting out small grass fires one song at a time. And I was not alone in that, by the way. I think there was 2 other members that were up there cutting a rug as well.
Dancing the night away.
Yes.
This is a different video, and your wife is kind of embarrassed in it, but
She's
you look
used to it.
good.
She's used to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You look good.
Yeah. Sinatra, I am not. Anything else, Counselor King?
That'll take care of it. Thank you.
All right. Well, I was going to give myself the own recognition for the dance moves, but since you stole my thunder, no, I could agree with everybody's comments up here. Chasing Denver was great. Snug Harbor and Wahoo Willie's, thank you for covering the cost to have them there, as well as town staff that was working hard. I think I might even saw Andy swerve a little bit to some of those songs. So either that or he was one shoe. The wind. It was wind. Okay. All right. Next is advisory committees, items, reports, and appointments. We have the Anchorage Advisory Committee. Madam Clerk,
It's for appointment of 2 new members.
we have, let me pull it up here. It's not in this, so let me pull it up. I believe one was Jim Hockett
And Ed Schoonover.
and Ed Schoonover.
We have 2 openings and 2.
Yep.
2
Is-
openings, 2 applications.
Then I would make a motion that we just accept the 2 applicants for the 2 openings.
Okay. I believe, well, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Counselor Veach, seconded by Counselor King. Is there a form? I believe Mr. Hockett lives just over the bridge. Is there a form that he must fill out or has to be filled out to take that seat?
No, you give preference to a
Okay.
beach resident.
I couldn't remember the exact process. Okay. There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I'd just like to thank these two individuals for stepping up and serving.
Absolutely. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Congratulations, gentlemen, and thank you for your service. Next is a presentation from Mr. Goodman. Marcus Goodman is here. He's the Executive Director of the Lee County Housing Authority. Mr. Goodman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. For the record, Marcus Goodson, Executive Director, Lee County Housing Authority. I wanted to also thank Sarah for inviting me back to have a conversation with you this morning, more so a conversation than a presentation about your efforts to perhaps build some workforce housing on or near the island as you rebuild the island. I would like to say that at the risk of boring the older or the members that were here before, this is my third time coming before you. But for the benefit of the new councils, and there's a new town manager who I met this morning, just a bit of background on me. I've been in this community now. I've lived in Lee County since 2002, and I live just up the road off of Winkler and Summerlin. And I will say that this is my first visit back since the hurricane. And it's purposely my first visit back. To be very honest with you, one, I didn't want to be in the way of any of the restoration work. And two, I wasn't sure if I was ready to see the island in person based on what I had seen on the news. My house, we took in about 3 feet of water in the garage and about 2 to 3 inches throughout the house. So I know what happened here was much, much worse. And so I applaud you for the strength that you're showing to rebuild this beautiful island, and also in the midst of rebuilding the island that you are thinking forward enough to think about how do we rebuild in a holistic way where we consider those who work on the island, that advance the economic benefit to those who live on the island but can't afford to live here. And so it's a bit of a challenge, but I think there's a path forward. I'm optimistic that there's a path forward. Just a little bit about me for those new council members. I took over the Lee County Housing Authority, the Fort Myers Housing Authority in 2002, and it was regarded at that time, for those of you who've been in this community many, many years, it was regarded at that time as one of the worst housing authorities, not only in the state of Florida, but in the country. Over a 17-year career at Fort Myers, I also managed the Lee County Housing Authority simultaneously. So I was over 2 housing authorities at the same time, started in 2010. When Hurricane Maria ravaged Puerto Rico, I'd never been to Puerto Rico in my life. I got a call from the equivalent of the Puerto Rico Housing Authority, the second largest housing authority in the country behind New York City. And they asked if I would be willing to come over and lead the effort to rebuild their public housing stock. Now, I'd never been there. I didn't know these people. They had heard of the work that we had done in Fort Myers. At that time, it was about $150 million in redevelopment work. So I retired at that time, went to Puerto Rico, closed 4 or 5 huge affordable housing project deals, and then COVID hit. And as bad as COVID was for us, those of you who are familiar with Puerto Rico, was much worse in Puerto Rico, just because the medical system there is just not as up to par as it is here in the States. I came back here, took over Lee County Housing Authority, which I managed since 2010. And so we've been doing work there, building that agency. We've got a project in Cape Coral, Civitas of Cape Coral. You may have seen it on the news. It's coming out of the ground. I think it's 96 units there. That's our project. We've got one that we were just funded tax credits for, Hermosa, It's a 90-unit senior development that's out on 41 in North Fort Myers, headed out towards Punta Gorda. And we've got a couple more projects that we think we're going to get funding for. But the reason I came this morning and accepted the invite that Sarah extended was because I believe that the time is right for a project here on the island, or perhaps close to the island. And it's very encouraging, given my background, to be in front of people who understand the need for attainable or workforce housing in every community. So I'm happy to be here. One, two, I think that there is an opportunity to do this. There's an opportunity to advance a project where we can get people in homes, in rental units that earn 60 to 120% of the AMI, and the AMI in Lee County is about $64,000. When you have a conversation with people on a beach, in a beach community, where you typically run into higher income families about workforce housing, sometimes you get funny looks. But again, I think that the time is right. If you think that the time is right to move forward a project like this, and I will say that if you are interested in accessing the county's CDBG-DR funding, then you got to move quickly. I had a conversation on Friday with the person who is leading that program. And I know you all know that there's $1.1 billion that Lee County is going to receive in disaster recovery funding. And approximately $300 million of the $1.1 billion is going to be for housing. Obviously, ground zero is where we stand now for Lee County in terms of the effects of Hurricane Ian. So the opportunity to access that funding is right in front of the beach. And so I say to you, as a consultant and a small developer of affordable housing, but more so a consultant, to bring people together to make it work. If there is an interest here in doing this, now is the time to do it. The first RFP will be issued from Lee County the 1st of 2024. The date has not been provided yet, but we know it's going to be in January. I also learned on my call Friday that there's going to be a 60 to 90 day period from the issuance of that RFP to the submission date to get it back in. So we stand here in October, and you've got November, you've got December, and then you've got to factor in the holidays. And so we know how that kind of, push things back. So we don't have a ton of time. The beach doesn't have a ton of time if you're going to access this funding. Now, if accessing this funding is not critical to any project you may undertake down the road, then you've got time to sit back and figure out exactly what it is you want to do. But I would say to you that if there is support from the mayor and council to move a project forward, then you would benefit from moving it forward in a way that you could apply and hopefully access some of the DR funding. So I wanted to share that message with you this morning, and to take any questions that you may have of me. Again, I think it would be a wonderful project if it's here on the island, or certainly on San Carlos, close to the island. Those were the conversations we had before we were looking at San Carlos. And as I drove over this morning, again, this is my first trip back since the hurricane, I was looking, and those properties are still there, obviously, at least the land in some cases, and there may be some opportunities there, but there may also be some opportunities here on the island. So I'm happy to work with you, but you've got your procurement, Mr. Manager, that you all have to follow to bring someone on to lead an effort like this. If you choose to go down that path, we're certainly qualified to assist you in that regard, and we would certainly like to work with you on a project like that. It kind of fits into our bailiwick with what we've done in the past and our expertise. And of course, I would bring in people that we would need to help make this a huge success.
Is there questions for Mr. Boone? Council King, you have any questions?
None.
Vice Mayor Adult?
Well, first of all, thanks for being here this morning. I've heard your other presentations and they've been great. You'll have to forgive us. We're a year in after the storm. We went through the whole process for the HUD money through the county, and they were very gracious to hear us. But we're overwhelmed with rhetorical flourishes at this point, in the sense that we need to, if there is an opportunity on the other side of the bridge or here for workforce housing, we need to get a little more granular and just cut through the niceties and just tell us what we need to do, who we need to hire, how we target it. I mean, you gotta help us get real here, because the county was very gracious to hear us, but the dollars seem years away, and it's already been a year. So we got to get a little more real. So help us if you can this morning.
Yeah.
If you were in our shoes, how would you make it happen?
So good question. As a governing body, that's not your job. To make the decision to move forward on a project like this is your job. And then you bring in, through the manager, the right people to do that work. Now, selfishly, I would like to think that I'm a part of that right people team. I've done it before. I've got, and I hate to use the pronoun I, but I will use it in the context of this response. I do have the relationships on the county level to walk into their offices and say, hey, I represent Fort Myers Beach, and this is what we're looking to do. But I think Fort Myers Beach in its own right has a place at the table. And that was the question I asked on Friday, to make sure, because I had heard, and it was false information, but I wanted to confirm that the DR funding would be awarded based on zip code. I don't know if you had heard that. And then there may be some zip codes that would not be receiving funding as much as others. And that's totally false. But I had to hear that for myself, which I did on Friday. And I made that call in preparation of coming over to speak with you this morning. So that's, Mr. Council, Vice Mayor, I would say that it's not your job to get down into the weeds. That's why you bring in someone like me. That's what I do. And we've been very successful. Now you can research the projects that I've been involved in. I'm happy for you to do that. And you will see what I'm saying to you is accurate.
And I appreciate that. So if we follow that course of action, what would be the obvious first steps that you would take to make this happen?
So once I'm brought on board as a consultant leading this effort, then again, I will go to Lee County in a different capacity. It was more of an inquiry on Friday, but now it would be more of a direct conversation about what we at Fort Myers Beach, it would be we then, what we at Fort Myers Beach is interested in doing. This is what town council, the manager is willing to put forth towards this project. And then we could talk in greater detail. We have some land perhaps that we've identified on San Carlos, or perhaps now in light of what has happened as a result of the hurricane, there may be, and I don't know this information because I haven't spoken with the manager in detail, or Sarah, but there may be some land now on the island that may be suitable for, a 40, 50 unit project. But I could talk in more details because I then have the authority. I have Fort Myers Beach behind me, the weight of the beach behind me, to walk in to human services and say, hey, I represent the beach and we need to have a conversation.
And just for folks that are watching, assuming that we get through that phase, identify some land, and then you find the funding to purchase the land, and then you also find the funding to actually build the housing, and then who administers the housing? Is that done through the county then?
No, so the beach is not in, your mission is not to manage homes, it's not to build housing, it's not to do any of those things. So we would bring in the ownership entity would manage the housing to answer that question. The funding would come from.
Is the ownership entity a private entity then?
Well, yeah, we would create, well, it would be with the Housing Authority, our nonprofit affiliate. So it would be a government agency. We would be a part of the ownership structure, but we would go out and we would apply for perhaps 4% tax credit or 9%. And the 9% tax credit is always oversubscribed, so it's really competitive. It's hard to get. 4% is undersubscribed because there's a gap. There's a gap in funding. But what happens is this DR funding can fill that gap. So now 4% is very attractive. Okay. So we would go after 4% and or 9% at the same time. And we would leverage those funds to build a project on the island or on San Carlos. Now, what I would suggest is that if there's a way for the beach to contribute to perhaps land acquisition, perhaps there's land that you own that you could provide as your contribution, that goes a long ways when you're trying to leverage funding for a project like this.
And last question, if the target is off island and on San Carlos, obviously that's not the jurisdiction of the town of Fort Myers Beach or the council, and that would be an unincorporated Lee County. How do we play a role in furthering a project off the island that's not technically in our jurisdiction?
So if you contribute to a project off the island, then you have interest in that island. In that
You mean
project.
financially, you mean?
Correct, like towards the acquisition of the land, because if it's on San Carlos, I'm assuming now, and you get in trouble when you assume, my assumption is that the island does not own that property. So we would have to acquire it. So the conversations we had before with the prior town manager was that there may be interest from town council to throw into the acquisition, financially into the acquisition of land off of San Carlos, because before the hurricane, we weren't having conversations about building anything on the island.
And if you were in our shoes,
Yes.
seeing our most recent fiscal books.
I haven't seen them. Sorry.
Well, it's a little rough right now.
Gotcha.
But can we utilize or leverage some of these county or federal HUD funds to make the acquisition? And if we do, how do you do that if it's outside your technical jurisdiction, if it's not in Fort Myers Beach and it's on San Carlos or somewhere along that?
Well, the
that
answer
area?
the first part of your question, you absolutely can try to leverage funding to purchase land outside of the jurisdiction of Fort Myers Beach. You can absolutely do that. We can do that with DR funding. But I have not seen the RFP yet. My working belief, because I've seen a ton of RFPs, that when you respond to that RFP, if we have a purchase sales agreement, a PSA, for example, for some land on San Carlos, pending funding to build the project, then that's going to strengthen your application for DR funding. Again, I have not seen the RFP, but typically that's how that works. If you respond to an RFP and you don't have land, you don't have a commitment, you have nothing, you're not going to score very well. Now, if there's land on the island that's owned by the beach and you commit that to a project, then that's going to really, in my opinion, probably improve your chances of funding.
Thank you.
You covered most of my questions, but it's my understanding that the town of Fort Myers Beach, not necessarily, you mentioned the zip code, but the town of Fort Myers Beach really doesn't qualify through the AMI for those fundings. Is that accurate? I mean, that's what we've been told.
No, I have not. I have not seen that in any research that I've done. When you say don't qualify, what do they mean exactly?
Well, we don't meet the AMI requirements to receive that HUD funding.
I would just point out, though, that that's not really true, because the funding has got to go for the benefit of the LMI people. And when you do a housing project, your policies set who the benefit is. So any housing project can be administered to qualify for the LMI.
Right. So if we build something here or something close to here, then it would be income restricted. And so then you would qualify. So I'm not sure. I wasn't a part of that conversation. So
Yeah, I mean,
hate
it's
to
a
try
moving
to
target.
respond.
We understand that. I
Yeah.
think, we certainly know that there's it. So I've spoke to someone that is involved in that Cape Coral project that is very well versed.
Civitas?
Yeah.
The project well? Yeah.
That's very well versed in workforce or affordable housing,
Right.
however you want to word it. And they've been very, very strong worded that they don't see any way that it could happen specifically on the island without a very, very sizable chunk of land that is going to be very expensive to buy. So putting the money, the dollars and cents to it, to him, he doesn't see how it could ever happen on the island, but just off the island, it's a little bit more attainable.
Without knowing who you spoke with, that sounds like a developer talking. And what I believe he or she meant was that when you factor in the cost of this land out that window that I'm looking at now that's being demolished, the cost of that land to build a workforce or affordable housing project probably would not work because of the cost of that land. All right. I don't know what that land costs, maybe $10 million, but I promise you the rents from that project would not cover the debt service. So he or she was right. But when you have land that's close to here, or you have land that's owned by the beach that could be committed to the project, then that $4 or $5 million land acquisition cost goes away. And then that project is feasible. Was I close there without
Yeah.
knowing who you spoke with?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're pretty close.
Yeah.
The other question I have is the county, I believe, owns close to a 7-acre parcel over on San Carlos Island. Has there been any discussion about using an already owned asset from the county to look at making this a viable thing that's close to the island?
Now, my conversations with the county thus far, John Talmadge and others, is that the county has tons of land, but it's typically lots. It's a lot here, a lot there. Was not aware that there was a 7-acre tract. I will speak with John Talmadge about that.
Yeah, it's
On San Carlos.
Yeah, I believe it's right next door to the now I forget the name of the barge company that's right there. Yeah, where Trico was part of their land, but I believe it's almost 7 acres on the Back Bay that the county already owns.
That would be more than enough. 7 acres?
Yeah, I believe it's 7 acres. If memory serves me, somewhere close to that. And I know that there's other land that's, to me, I look at this as an opportunity to find something that services not just the town of Fort Myers Beach, but Sanibel and Captiva. And in this triangle there of the road that you have to go through to get there, it seems like there's a lot of land available to make it work. It is just off island for both of us, but it could service both or all three communities, not just the town of Fort Myers Beach or Bonita, or it's something that's close enough where people don't have to drive from Lehigh Acres or North Fort Myers to get here. I just think personally, it's going to be very difficult on the island to allow resources, I guess, in the state that we're already in, where we have to go to Tallahassee and beg for help now, as well as every other community that was affected by Ian. So it's a difficult time with land prices, in my opinion, to do this, but I certainly am behind trying to find a solution just off the island that can service all of us.
Tallahassee is certainly sensitive to this type
Yes.
of project as well.
Yeah.
And there could be some help there. Just from a time sensitivity perspective, as I stated earlier, if there, and I will reach out to the county today about the 7 acres, but you're going to want to get in line for this DR funding. If there's any real interest, and I sense that there is, I don't think you would have me out here speaking with you about it if you were not interested. You got to access those funds. Now there'll be future RFPs, I've been told. This is just the first one, but I would really like to be in line for that first RFP. You just never know how things shake out. You don't know which projects are going to ask for what. $300 million is a lot of money, but when you are using $300 million to try to address the lack of housing in Lee County, Florida, $300 million is not a ton of money. It's going to go pretty quick.
Councilor Whitson?
So I just have a question. Has Lee County targeted any parcels or anything like that in our area? And what I consider our area would be anywhere from across the bridge off island, because I too don't believe that on island it's even going to become feasible with the land costs and that type of thing. But, from San Carlos Island, maybe all the way to Gladiolus, if you will. Has Lee County targeted any locations like that for parcels of land that they're interested in that could benefit the surrounding community?
Well, the projects that we have in the pipeline, the one in Cape Coral on Pine Island Road, and then the one out on 4041, our focus has been North Fort Myers. We've got a couple projects. Actually, we've got about 4 projects now that should be coming out of the pipeline in the next 18 months, all over in North Fort Myers. I don't know when the last time you've been to North Fort Myers, but there's a bit of an activity, a buzz going on over there now. And then Cape Coral as well. In terms of out here, it gets to the land cost. The land cost, as Mayor stated, it's prohibitive for an affordable or an attainable or workforce, whatever you want to call it, however you want to label it. It's difficult to do when you factor in the land cost. I was encouraged before the hurricane because the conversations that I had at the time with staff was that perhaps there may have been up to $500,000 that could be used to acquire some land on San Carlos. It sounds like now with all of what you're dealing with, that's just not the case. So perhaps there is something that the county can do in terms of a land contribution. I would like to think that they would be interested if the beach is interested. I think your voice is strong. Your voice is motivating, I believe. And that I think that you could get some things done just by being in support of a project like this to try to help house people who work on this island. I drove past the Jimmy Buffett project, Margaritaville, and I don't know what you guys have in the pipeline, but I guarantee you there are probably more of those projects coming now that there's available land. So you got to have people to work. You got to have people to work in those resorts and in the restaurants. I heard you say it was an hour and a half wait earlier for dinner. I don't know if it was on the island, but you got to have people to work. And it's nice when you can live near where you work, maybe ride a bike or a scooter across the bridge. That would be nice.
And I have the strap numbers if you want to make it
Yes,
a
I
little
do.
easier for you.
I absolutely want them.
So the first one is 19-46-24-000005.0210. And the next one is the exact same thing with the exception of after the dot, it's 0220. The first one is on Main Street. That's about 3 acres. It's 120,000, just under 3 acres, 120,000 square feet of area. And it does not say the second parcel where Trico Shrimp Company was is much larger, but it doesn't say what the square footage is. So it looks like it's close between those two parcels of 6 to 7 acres. Yeah.
I will reach out to the county today.
Counselor Beach?
Thanks again for coming. I really do appreciate it. Now, first, your role. You said you're a consultant, but you also run the housing authority. Now, are you a consultant just for the housing authority? You're an independent consultant.
I am an independent consultant. So let me give you a little bit more background on me. So I currently am executive director of 2 housing authorities, Lee County. This is going to be kind of funny. Lee County, Florida, and Lee County, North Carolina. That's 2 Lee counties. To go way back, Sanford Housing Authority, which is located in Lee County, North Carolina, which is where I'm born and raised in Raleigh, North Carolina. I don't know how familiar you are with the Carolinas, but it's in the Sand Hills. It's near Pinehurst. It's about 30 minutes from Fort Bragg, about 40 minutes from Raleigh, where my mom still lives. Sanford gave me my break in this business. Back when I was a city planner, I had no prior experience in public housing. They took a chance on someone who knew nothing and opened doors for me that have really changed my life. And so Sanford called last year. They had a lady running the housing authority who left and kind of ran it in the ditch and asked me would I come back and help them right the ship. And so I've done this a couple times before. I did some work in Arkansas for the Little Rock Housing Authority. And so I'm back and I'm leaving tomorrow. I was supposed to leave yesterday to go back to North Carolina for 2 weeks, and I knew this meeting, so I pushed my flight back to tomorrow. So to answer your question, Counselor, I am temporarily running Sanford to get it back on track, and then Lee County as well. So I fly back and forth.
Just as a way to, because I appreciate your expertise and your connections for the county. Like with the fire department, we're recently talking about, I also prefer to have more local control over such things.
Sure.
I've been told
I
some
support
things.
the chief. I heard that.
Yeah. Now, have you done housing projects that include commercial elements?
That I was looking at that last night in preparation of today's conversation, and I thought that would be a wonderful project, given either on the beach or near the beach, to have some kind of commercial on the lower floor, first floor. But I have not done a project like that yet. All of my projects have been housing projects. I think there was one project in Puerto Rico that had some commercial on the ground floor.
Because
was
I've been
one.
told by some other people that at first I thought, well, if you put commercial, then maybe you're dirtying the waters for housing money. But he said, actually, you open up other funding streams
Yeah.
that can be used for such things. Now, you said one of the first steps is you come up with some kind of plan. Is you come up with a purchase agreement for land. And I'm just going to say, I know that one thing I know, like we have our town hall land. And if we don't use that for rebuilding town hall, if we build town hall in Bay Oaks or whatever, then that land is town owned land. If you go for a lot of grant money, like from SHIP money and all this, one of the first things they ask you is what land does a town own that's suitable for housing? So trying to do any kind of project, your land, the town owned land kind of becomes, I guess, an asset for doing that kind of thing. And I think that the point being that right now we have fire department land that they have said they would be interested in selling. We have our own land, which is adjacent to it. Just those two together is 4 acres. And it's also right next to, in our municipal area. And it seems to me that, and the other kind of point of that is that with this, this DR money, now that's kind of a once of a lifetime funding potential stream. The town itself, we're not really in a financial situation to be able to put a lot of funding forth other than land that we own. And so the hope would be, in my mind, is that DR money and other funding streams you can get in our land would be enough to complete a project. And the land values, I think the appraised value is like what, $16 million or something, which I think is a little high.
That's
For
less
those
than
two,
that
those
now,
two
but-
parcels?
Yeah, well, for one of the parcels.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those two parcels. You wouldn't need them both. Just one would suffice for a project like this. I would imagine you're talking 50 units maybe. You wouldn't need both parcels. Just one. And there are also ways, let me say this, there are also ways of paying the town back for that land. All right. You can set it up in the agreement where it's provided for the project, but then it could be paid back over time so the town could get their money back.
Now, so these projects you just said you did, how did they start?
Let's see. So they always start, first of all, just with the vision, wanting to do the project. And then two, the first thing a developer will say to you as the mayor in his conversation about the Civitas project is you got to have the dirt. So you've got to figure out where you're going to build the project. If you've got the dirt, then you are way ahead of the game. If you do not have the dirt, then you've got to figure out where you're going to get the dirt for the project and how you're going to purchase it. Those are going to be the first things you got to check. That's the first box. Do we have the dirt? You just mentioned possibly you may have it. If you don't, then we've got to acquire the property. And that's where it starts. And then you begin to understand the vision of, in this case, the council, the manager, what it is you want to do. All right, what should the project look like? Should it be commercial on the first floor? Do you want to provide affordable housing, workforce housing for 50 families? Is it 60? What is it you want? And then once we understand what you want, then we can try to tailor that project to what you have communicated to us that you want and need on or near the island. So first we have to sit down with you and figure out what it is you believe you want. And then we put together a plan. How do you fund this? Where's the funding coming from? All right. Again, you've got this opportunity for DR funding that as you said, it's not going to happen again. I would tell you the day after the storm, I walked out into my neighborhood and we were all out, neighbors looking around at the damage. And given my background, I have to apologize for that first. I walked away and I was looking at my house and I said to myself, I said, gosh, this is terrible. I said, but you know what? There's going to be an opportunity to rebuild as a result of this storm. That's the first thing I thought, given my background, how bad it was. And 5 seconds later, the opportunity we're going to have, because I knew what happened in my house. I could only imagine what happened here because I knew what happened in my house. So I knew it was going to be an opportunity to rebuild. And that's where we are now. So you're right. It is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I hate that it happened, but we should take advantage of the opportunity that we have in front of us.
Now, the other question is your projects. I know that the DR funding, that they're really designed to be more mixed income than purely affordable housing, right? 51% of the units have to serve people who have an LMI or less, right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
So in the DR funding, 51% of the units that are funded for a project have to serve the LMI, but the other ones can be anything up to market rate housing. Have you done mixed income housing, or are they all strictly affordable?
No, everything that I've done so far has been affordable. So you see, you have to understand what side of the ledger I've worked on for the most part. It's all been for housing authority. So everything we've done has been affordable. And in the last, 10 years, you've got this whole workforce housing thing now. So that's where we've sort of been migrating to now, workforce housing. But I have not done a workforce housing project. The main difference is the income of the families who can live there. So a lot of the funding is the same, just the income limits are increased for workforce housing.
Right.
Because that's 60 to 120% AMI.
But when you do, when you do some of the, if you can go up to like market rate housing, I mean,
Mhm.
one of the reasons I'm appealing this, I know that there's a project that's going on. Is it the old newspaper building? I think where they're talking about doing a project where
Yeah.
there'll be partially
Yeah.
LMI and then the rest will be kind of whatever market rate.
Yeah.
Is that I understand with Sanibel where they have, it's all workforce housing based on a formula that they have to put money into the project every year, even though they own it outright. There's
To cover debt service?
yeah, not even debt service, just
Oh.
because of the there's so little income that comes from, the pool of workers. That if you have a mixed income, there's a bunch of advantages to that. One is that there's not the stigma that it's an affordable project.
Right.
There's all kinds of people living there. The other is you make enough income to sustain it, to make sure it's well maintained, and to make sure that it doesn't become a white elephant for the community.
Yeah, well, that's why you've got to put money aside for repairs, reserve for replacement, those kinds of things. And when you are dealing with, as I said earlier, that we know the rents from a project couldn't cover a project built on this land. It's just not. I mean, you're going to have extremely high rents to cover that. So you're right. You've got to be able to put money away for these projects for reserve for replacement because things break down over time. Sanibel, I'm not familiar with the Sanibel model. I've heard of it, but I haven't spoken with anyone out there. But I understand they got a really nice model, and they've done some really unique things out on the island. I'm
So-
just not familiar with it.
So does the Lee County Housing Authority work with mixed income projects, or are they strictly, I mean, do they have any projects like that they've done?
No,
is it possible to do that with the Lee County Housing?
Oh,
Authority?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We can do that, but all of our projects thus far have been affordable projects. All of them have been affordable. All of my work over in Fort Myers was affordable, but you absolutely can do mixed income.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, one of the appeals to me really is that we have some things, the free market does a great job in the country and on the island, but the dynamics change. So things like we don't have a bank on the island because of demographics and because of, technology. We're people tell me they'd like to see more, markets and like to see pharmacies and these kind of things. That one of the appeal to me of having a project that would have enough market rate housing to pay the bills and to pay for the maintenance is that you also have other options. We could make retail space that we subsidize for or give a below market rate for the businesses that our constituents say they want on the island. Things like a pharmacy, a market, a bank, those kind of things. And the other thing about being on the island is that the people who are living on the island is, as they said with the fire department, what Botana said, we're down to 5,000 some odd people now. 10 years ago, we were over 6,000. So as a way to have people live here, that means these people can volunteer for our committees and different clubs, maybe run for council, be a part of the community where projects that are off the island, we wouldn't get that benefit.
So what you're describing, and you've asked about my history with development, which has been exclusively affordable, because you have to remember I work for the Housing Authority, so that's been our mission. But what you are asking is my role then would be to bring to this body, to the manager, a developer, a co-developer partner, like a Michaels, for example, a national developer with the cash to manage these projects, to float these projects, and then be reimbursed on the back end. that have done projects like what you just described. And I'm not promoting Michaels. I've done work with them before, but I've done work with a number of developers. Michaels has a project at Disney now. They've got a project, I think it's in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. They've got a project there. They've got projects that basically mirror what you just described. They've got nice renderings, commercial on the bottom floor, and then they've got mixed income units going up, okay? Affordable workforce market rate. That's basically what I heard you describe. So then if something opens up on the island in terms of dirt, and that is the desire of this body, the manager, then you bring in a developer with that experience, okay? And then my role would be to represent the beach as a consultant and make sure that your wishes and desires are carried out in that project.
Now, have you worked with an entity like, the Urban Land Institute or other planners on these kind of projects?
Yeah, we haven't used the urban land. I'm very familiar with them. I'm a planner by trade. My degree is in urban and regional planning. I'm very familiar with them. Talented organization, but we haven't used them. We haven't had a need to use them, but they really got their stuff together. Absolutely.
Because one thing I find it's in order to really vet and express a vision, sometimes you need more than words. You need someone to draw something up and show people what this could be, and then come to a decision point for council. Is it something that we want to go forward with, or something we don't?
Well, first we have to get the vision from council, and then we provide the visual for the community to see what it would look like. But first we have to have those marching orders from council and manager as to what it is you want to see, and then we create the visual for the community to take a look at and buy into.
Now, another kind of question, you talked about the 4 and the 9% tax. Explain that to me. What does that mean?
So when you have 9% tax credits and you are awarded 9% tax credits through all of this is through Florida Housing Finance Corp, where you can get 4% with Lee County Housing Finance, Phil Burnett and his team downtown Fort Myers. But the 9%, if you are awarded 9% credits, you sell those credits to investors. And when you sell them to the investors, the cash that you make from the 9% sale, you use to develop your project. 9%, 4%. For 9%, you reap more benefit, financial benefit than the 4%. The 4%, you've got to have the gap. They call it gap funding. The DR funds could provide that gap funding. Before any DR funds were made available, hardly anyone went after 4% because you couldn't make the deal work. But now that you've got the opportunity to apply for DR funding, 4% are going to be very attractive for projects like this. So you sell the credits to investors, RBC, B of A, Truist Bank, because they need the tax write-offs. So they buy the credits and buy down their tax liability to the federal government. That's the benefit of them buying the credits. And we take the money from the sale of those credits and put it into the project.
Interesting. So it's just, you get something that's marketable. That 9% is just something that's marketable to sell to somebody who has a high tax burden.
Yeah, they know us. They monitor statewide in every state in the country, Walmart's, Amazon now, I'm sure they have a fund that does that because they need these tax write-offs. So when they see that you are in line to receive credits, my phone starts to ring and people want to talk to you about purchasing the credits from you. And so that drives up the cost. Can you believe before the recession, now I guess it's been 10, 12 years now, we were selling credits for $1.10 per dollar. They were paying more than $1 for the credits. That's what it's worth to them.
And so now, does this mean, like, because if you have a project, let's say it's a $50 million project, that 9% of that?
No.
How does it work? I mean, how much money is actually involved in the 9%?
Yeah, so it depends on what the state awards you in terms of how much your 9% you receive, and then you sell that. It's going to be, if it's 9%, if you get 98 cents on the dollar, maybe 95 now, I don't know where it's trending, you'll get $14, $15 million for a project.
Interesting.
So I guess what you're looking for is some direction. And based on what I'm hearing, it sounds like you're saying time is kind of the essence for the DR funding. Land, I mean, where I think we're at is in a position where we're not exactly sure what's going to happen with the land that we have available. Are we going to build on it? Are we not going to build on it? Is it going to go to Bay Oak? I mean, we still have a lot of uncertainty of what's going to happen with that land. We don't really have, as you said, we don't have a plan in place as to what workforce housing could or could not look like. We haven't even started having those discussions about how you could get there, whether it's through impact fees, how you fund it, I mean, things like that. With the county owning the land, I'm in full support of doing something or standing behind something. I don't know that we're currently in a position, and this is just my opinion, I don't know that we're currently in a position to offer something on the island. Not saying that there isn't opportunities out there, but I don't think at this time have any availability to do that. But I would be in support of working with the county to try to come up with a way to work with some of the land that they have, or using some of those DR funds to purchase land just off the island, because I believe it will service more than just the town of Fort Myers Beach, and it can help Sanibel and Captiva and Fort Myers for that matter. So I guess that's the direction I would give, but I'll defer to my council members to see their thoughts.
I would just say, Dan, that I don't think anything's mutually exclusive. I know I've heard mention in the Resilient Lee meeting, you know, Holly is a fan of somewhere in Iona, which is close to both of us. One of the problems of building kind of workforce housing off the island is that people still have to drive onto the island. You know, if it's not right on San Carlos Island, not really close, they're going to have to park. They're going to be contributing to traffic. It really doesn't solve as many problems as having something on the island. I also think that right now we have an opportunity that we're never going to get again with the combination of available land and with the hazard mitigation grant, the Resilient Lee money. Things that would never be feasible otherwise could be feasible, and having things on the island could serve a lot more of the needs of our constituents than having something off the island.
Well, that's why I brought up those two pieces of property. They're on water, to Vice Mayor Adderhalt's position on water taxis. A development there, they would never have to get on a bike or a car. There could be a taxi, that water taxi could bring them to Sanibel via boat. It could bring them to the town of Fort Myers Beach via boat. It wouldn't have to be something that they have to drive a car. At the end of the day, you got to look at the value of the land on the island, and it's you know, I'm sure our taxpayers would have an issue with the town giving up potentially a $16 million asset.
Did you say 60?
16.
Oh,
12 to 16, whatever the value of the land is, especially not knowing where we're going to have a town hall yet, and funding that. So it seems to me just like we're ahead of our skis here a little bit with this. We all know it's a thing. We know President Pasadomo is very much in favor of getting this done. We know that Lee County is very much in favor of working to get this done, which we've seen, as you said, through Cape Coral. I just think I agree with Holly that there is some opportunities out there, especially if time is of the essence with this DR funding, that could be much more attainable, much more achievable than where we are as a town, not knowing where our home is going to be for our employees, or where people can come in and get their permits or apply for their permits. So that's, again, just my position. I'm one of five, but I will certainly defer to my fellow council members to listen to their input. Vice Mayor Adderholt, would you like to say something?
Well, if we're going to prioritize, I agree and disagree with Councilor Veach in that I agree with him that for it to be helpful, it really needs to be close enough where folks can hop on a bike and or a water ferry to Fort Myers Beach. And I think just over the bridge is ideal. And so that's what I would lean towards. And I would, at this point, in terms of the negotiations and broader strategy, I would probably, you know, we're not part of all the various conversations that are going on right now. So I would probably yield to our town manager to work with you behind the scenes and with all the other entities he's been talking to, he and Frank. I just think that would be probably best to work through the town manager on strategy. But from a policy perspective, I think ideally it'd be great to be working and partnering with Lee County just over the bridge to see if there's a lower cost land option that also gives us the benefit of people be able to either water ferry or bike to the island for work and not contribute to the traffic problem.
Councilor King?
I think, Mayor, you and the Vice Mayor have said what I would be behind.
Councilor Woodson?
I'm in agreement to have workforce housing to really focus on the other side of the island to get the benefit from other communities too. We don't know what we might need that 16 million to sell the land to someone else. We don't know. We don't know where we're at yet. And I think to be rushed into a long-term decision like this, I don't think we're in the position to do it.
Councilor Beach? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to clarify that rushed into a decision on the beach. I am wholeheartedly willing to work with Lee County off the beach.
You know, one of the problems, again, I've expressed that there's a lot of good things that we can do on the island that you just can't do off the island. The other is I'm a little uncomfortable saying, well, you know, the county, you have land. We want to use that land. We want to dictate how you're going to use that land when we have similar land and we're not willing to put that land forward for the same kind of use.
Well, I don't think that's what we're saying, quite honestly, Councilor Beach. I think what we're saying is they have available land just like we do. It makes sense to look at that. They are the ones in control of the DR funding. We are not. So to me, it just makes financial sense from their standpoint to look at property that they own currently. And I'm not saying that. I just use that as one example. I'm sure there's other land available, but we have no control over the DR funds. If I'm not mistaken, we can propose land and we can try to put a proposal to do something on the island. But at the end of the day, we don't get to control where that DR funding goes.
Now, I haven't seen the RFP, but I would like to think that the RFP would offer points if the beach is a part of a project. Now, I don't know if it's going to be worded that way, but let's just say there's some land identified across the bridge, the county perhaps, and we have the beach as a part. We could, you know, structure it in a way that the beach is a part of the project. Then I would believe that would enhance that application for funding, DR funding, if the beach is a part, as opposed to a developer and whomever trying to develop that land. I think if the beach is a partner on it, I think you're gonna score better. I haven't seen RP yet, but I believe you would score better.
So what would the beach partnership look like for a project on county-owned land outside of our jurisdiction?
We'd have to look at it and figure it out. Because you know, it would be a unique relationship. And it could be that the relationship could be solidified by a small contribution towards the purchase of the land. I don't know what, you know, it doesn't have to be a huge amount. It could, you know, it could be a decent amount, but not a huge amount. That could tie us together and make you guys a part. Certainly, if you contribute to the purchase of the land, you're definitely a partner. I think that would strengthen the application, but let me do some research. Again, the RFP is not out yet, and they're not going to let you take a peek at it before it's ready. So, but I could certainly ask.
And I'd also just going to say, I know that we don't have control over this funding, but we are a part of that process. We are, and we have rights. And I think if we don't ask for money in our jurisdiction, the things that are, we don't ask for funding for projects that are within the intent of this grant, then we're not going to get the money. We're not going to, you know, one of the clearest indicators is, like Mark has said, there's a pretty good proportion of this DR funding which is for affordable housing. And if we don't ask for that, then we're just diminishing our chances of getting that funding into our community in any way, shape, or form. I think that it's, you know, I think right now I understand the value of the property becomes a detriment. It lowers the priority of the project a bit because the cost per door goes up, et cetera, et cetera. But we're also, I think the idea of being able to acquire more than just a 2 acre to the 4 acres and do more of a, you know, not strictly affordable, a mixed income project that'd be more mixed use would be a huge benefit for the town. And it's only feasible now because the land is only available now and the funding will only be available here in the near future. And if we don't have that, at least in the mix, if we don't at least ask for it, then, you know, the scuttlebutt is that the county is going to be more than happy to spend this money in unincorporated Lee County and not so much in the municipalities. So I think, you know, for me, I feel going through all this process with Resilient Lee, but then not asking for what we have the best chance of getting is kind of pushing our chair away from the table.
But you were talking about land contracts, and So I don't know what land would be available other than what we currently own. But I guess that's where some of your research would have to come in. What land is currently out there available that would be viable within the town of Fort Myers Beach? So we're not pushing our chair away from the table. You got to be realistic when it comes to numbers too.
We go back to your comment, that I can't imagine there's land on the beach that a private seller is selling that we could afford to purchase and develop a workforce housing project. The land cost is just going to make it insurmountable.
So I guess you're the expert here when it comes to this. What I'm hearing you say is that our best course of action would be to try to work with the county off island. If you were working for us as a contractor, is
Yeah.
that the advice that you would give the town manager?
If I was a contractor for you, I would say that if there's land that you own that you can contribute, you can reasonably contribute to the project, that would be one option. The second option would be land off island that's owned by the county. That's certainly, those are options, 1A and 1B, no question about it. Buying this land right here, that's a non-starter for a project like that. You would have to build 300 units and there'd be market rate to cover the cost of the land alone. I think what you're looking for here, and I don't want to, speak for you, I'm not in that position, is a 40, 50 unit development. It's not a large development. We've done 400 unit development. You're not talking about that here. You're talking about something a lot smaller, I believe. Unless you tell me I'm off base, that maybe, I don't think you're looking for a huge project. You're looking for 40, 50 units. So it doesn't take a lot of land to build that on. You can go up out here. So it doesn't take a lot.
And not just about, the land that's available, Dan. I know that there's been some casual conversations with the fire department. I mean, if they're going to, build their fire station somewhere else and have that land available, that they've expressed they're willing to sell that to us. I've also noticed there's been some very preliminary conversations with the Chapel by the Sea, that they've got a large lot, and that they'd be willing, there was some discussion, they'd be willing to sell part of that lot to use the proceeds to rebuild the church. And all three of those lots are adjacent. And I just don't think the opportunity is going to ever happen again, or with the funding and the potential to acquire land for the public use.
Well, I'll cover some of that conversation here under my comments at the end, but I see what you're saying. I keep going back to you saying now is the time because the RFP is coming out and we don't have a plan in place for where town hall is going to be yet. We don't know if we're going to need that land or not need that land. We don't even know what the building is going to cost specifically yet. So there's a lot of unknowns for us on that piece of property to say, in my opinion, to give you direction to say, we're willing to offer this up. But it sounds to me like there's a willingness to work with the county to figure out a plan. Again, how it gets funded, we can work through that, but we're certainly, it sounds to me that we're in lockstep with wanting to work with the county. We understand it's something that's needed, and it's needed close to the barrier islands. But I'm not comfortable with saying let's offer this up without knowing what we're going to do with it yet.
Well, it's not a bad bicycle ride across the bridge. I don't
No,
think.
it's not a bad ride at all.
But I
There's
do think,
trolleys
I mean, with the timing and the funding, and I'm not quite sure about the January thing because I know they've been canceling meetings and saying they're going to push back the date that they're going to come up with their action plan to February now, which may push things back a couple of months. No excuse to procrastinate.
It's
certainly.
fluid, but my conversations at the highest level, they're saying January the RP is coming out. That's been my conversations, and they're going to give 60, maybe 90 days to respond.
Yeah.
So.
And if the town has to come up with a contribution to try to encourage something to incentivize the county to do something on San Carlos Island, then that is money that we just don't have. Where we can put land into a project on the island, that's something we do have. And I think as far as the schedule, I think it's just maybe some imperative that we make our decisions. So we're not sitting on our hands with a decision that we can make while deadlines come and go.
And I mean, if you're putting it that way, I'm not comfortable making a decision to say we're going to put forth our land for this. I'm not comfortable making that decision, not today. But I am comfortable with giving you direction to work with the county on the properties.
I'm on it.
And continuing communication with the town manager and keeping us, if you don't mind coming back.
Absolutely.
And keeping us abreast as to what you're seeing and And I'm just a little concerned. You haven't read the RFP yet, so you don't know
Right,
exactly
no.
what it's going to look like.
No.
So I think today it's, again, in my opinion, too early to say we're willing to come in with our property and let's see where we go from here. I think it's too early.
If Talmadge just buy his phone, I'll be talking with him before I get out the parking lot.
But I will say, I don't think we're there right today, Dan. I don't think we're saying, I think there's a lot of things that have to happen. We have to you really figure what the project's going to be. Are we going to work with the fire department? There's a lot of envisioning. Can we get a purchase agreement to put all this together before we come to a point where I think the council has to make a decision, and we're going to move forward on it? I think really this is still the planning stage, and we really haven't done any of the planning stage stuff yet. So
I've got an idea, but I don't want to share it right now. Let me do some research. It could be really, really creative.
We're all about ideas. So, I mean, I don't want to hold you up any longer than we already have.
No,
but
no, no. I changed my flight to tomorrow, so I got time. I don't want to hold you all up. I know there are others who need this.
Is everyone comfortable with allowing Mr. Goodman to continue to talk with the town manager to bring forth some ideas? I'm looking forward to seeing your ideas of what you think can work after you've now been able to hear what we've had to say, go back to the county, hear what they have to say, and come back with an updated report if everyone's okay with that.
Certainly.
I'm good with that.
But I would also ask that we just don't take the town project off the table, that we just look and see how it develops before we make a decision.
I think everybody's on board with that idea. I mean, we don't know. We don't know. Again, we don't know what we're doing with that yet. There's too many unanswered questions. We may need it to build our own house as far as the town is concerned. So
I just for the record, Mr. Mayor, I get this a lot. It's actually Good Son, S-O-N.
what
I get, well, that's what it's in the print. I get
Goodman,
Goodman a
oh,
lot
good.
because it's
Good
easy to say
son.
that, but I answer to both.
I'm sorry.
But it's
That's-
actually Good Son, S-O-N.
Oh, really? Well, you could have corrected me from the beginning on
That's
that. I
all
feel horrible.
That's all right. It's okay.
I
no,
didn't
it's-
want to just call you Marcus.
That's fine too. I answer to that.
All right. Thank you, Marcus, for your time.
Thanks a lot, Marcus.
It's always good to be here.
And and let the manager know what you
I
find out.
gave the manager my card with my cell number.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
Thank you,
all right.
sir. Next, we have the approval of the minutes, the town council September 25th, 2023, town council budget hearing September 25th, 2023, and the town council October 2nd, 2023. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Motion by Counselor King. Is there a second?
I second, but I have a couple of changes.
Okay, second by Counselor Veach. Discussion.
One is on page 27, when talking about the LPA candidates, Mr. Pugalisa's name was misspelled.
Yep.
And it's a tricky name. So,
Okay.
and the other thing is, there was when we were talking about reviewing policies and procedures, there was consensus from council to move forward with that, and that wasn't mentioned in the minutes.
Okay. Any other corrections? All those in favor of approving the motion as amended, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Next is the consent agenda. Item A is Resolution 23-126, 23-127, and 23-128, extending the local state of emergency, Hurricane Ian. And Resolution 23-129, 23-130, 23-131, and 23-132, extending the declaration of local emergency for Hurricane Idalia. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Counselor Woodson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor King. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. We'll take a quick 5-minute break and we'll come back at, say, 10:50. 3. Our next agenda items is a public hearing. The next 3 items on our agenda are public hearings for review of various land use requests. For the benefit of the public, please be aware that these items are quasi judicial in nature. Our attorney will further explain. Did I read something wrong?
Yes, these are ordinances that are not quasi judicial.
There you go.
Are we talking about the public hearings 2315, 2313, and
It's Monday.
23-124?
That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
I was so excited to use my sheet.
Oh, I know. It's fun, but
Disregard what I said. Oh, all right.
I usually do.
Thank you, sir. The first public hearing A is an ordinance 23-15 owner builder permit. This is the final reading and public hearing in ordinance of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, amending section 6-325 owner builder exemption of Division 5 contractor licensing of Article 2 building codes or Chapter 6 maintenance codes, building codes, and coastal regulations of the code of the town of Fort Myers Beach to clarify who is eligible for an owner builder permit, providing for conflicts of law, scrivener's errors, severability, and an effective date.
okay, all right. Well, this is the second reading of this ordinance, and at the first reading, there was a very good point made that it was not tremendously clear that there are many trusts which do not qualify for an owner builder permit. So that the changed language right now says to qualify for exemption under this section, an owner cannot be a corporation, company, or partnership and must personally appear and sign the building permit application. Similarly to a person through a trust who is allowed to qualify for homestead tax exemption under section 196.0412 Florida statutes, a person who has a possessory right in the person's residence through a trust, which interest is an equitable title to real estate, as that term is employed in section 6, Article 7 of the Florida Constitution, may also qualify for an owner builder permit as to that person's residence. Otherwise, a trust would not be permitted to qualify for an owner builder permit. And I think this lays it out better in response to the question that was asked at the last meeting.
Any questions for Becky?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I would move approval of ordinance 23-15.
We have to do public comment first.
I'm sorry.
There are no questions for, I got one right. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in public comment on this? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. We have a motion by,
Once again,
Vice Mayor.
move passage of ordinance 23-15. And I would personally want to thank our town attorney and encourage our PIO to put out some kind of a statement announcing this new change. I feel a little bit bad that our previous town council did not find this opportunity to help our residents. So I'm thankful to our new town attorney for doing so. And I want to get that word out as soon as we can. But again, move approval of ordinance 23-15.
Second.
got a motion by Vice Mayor Adderholt, seconded by Counselor Veach. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Yeah, okay. Vice Mayor Adderholt,
Aye.
Counselor Veach,
Aye.
Counselor Woodson,
Aye.
Counselor King,
Aye.
Mayor Allers, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Next is ordinance 23-13, amending EC zoning location of construction near beaches. Final reading and public hearing in ordinance of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, amending chapter 34, article 3, division 4, section 34-652, environmentally critical EC zoning district, and chapter 6, article 3, division 2, section 6-366, location of construction near beaches, providing for severability, codification, scrivener's errors, conflicts of law, and an effective date. Sarah?
Good morning, Sarah Probst with Community Development. In 2020, the EC zoning district language was amended to reduce and clarify what can be built and repaired within this EC zoning district, which is the land on the seaward side of the 1978 coastal construction control line. In 2020, the town council voted to disallow the repairs of major accessory structures. There appear to be about half a dozen pools that extend over the CCCL. Some of these have been damaged and need repairs. One condominium has reached out to the town about repairing its pool that is partially in the EC, and staff has been directed to provide language to allow those types of repairs. The language before you today is intended to allow the repair of existing major accessory structures which are partially or fully seaward of the CCCL with approval of a special exception. Included in the language are some criteria of approval for a special exception for the repair of these structures in the EC. At the initial town council hearing for this ordinance, the town council asked that staff utilize the building code definition for repair to clarify what is allowed through a special exception. That language has been incorporated into 34652E3 and is shown as a double underline in the text provided to you. This is the second and final hearing for adoption, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Questions for Sarah?
I would just call one thing you said, Sarah. So partially or fully in the EC. So this could apply for a pool that is completely in the EC zone.
If there are any, we have not found that there are any, but that's the language that is written into the code. We have not surveyed all of the properties, and we haven't received surveys for all of the properties that are along the beach side. So there could be some that are fully, but most of them appear to only be partially within the EC.
Okay, I was having visions of those Marco Island dome homes, like having pools getting further and further out to sea.
And Sarah, I got Councilor King, did you have a question?
None.
Oh, did you have a question?
Just a statement.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to take a moment to thank Sarah and the staff for responding to this issue. I mean, the condos on this island are facing so many challenges to reopening, and this was one of them for some of the condos. And I just appreciate it's a very technical correction, but it's important. And I just wanted to thank the staff for being so responsive.
Thank you.
Guess this question is for Becky. Becky, through these changes, it's a special exception that they have to go through, correct, to get that? Is there any legal hurdles or challenges we might face by doing it this way? And just out of curiosity.
No, I think that this is a proper way of doing it.
Okay. So just for people that may not know how that process works, can you go through, for those that may be listening or in the audience here that have reached out with the issues with the pool, how that process will work for them?
So you would provide a special exception application to the town, showing us what it is that you're trying to do and why you need the special exception. There is special exception criteria within the land development code. And then this section also includes the section that we're changing today also includes some in chapter 6 or section 6-366 A3. There are some specific regulations that they need to answer questions for, or we need to review in response to for the special exception. So it's a one LPA hearing, one town council hearing process.
And you've got those listed. It looks like A and B are listed under that section 3. Or
Yes.
A, B, C,
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
D.
I said A. It's B3.
Okay.
And there's actually A, B, C,
C
and D.
and D, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So again, this is just for those that may not understand what this is. This is allowing a path forward that they didn't have before
Yes.
to repair things after the hurricane.
Yes, previously, there was no opportunity to repair anything that was within the EC. If it was an accessory structure, only major primary structures were allowed to be repaired, rebuilt.
Okay. Any other questions for Sarah? Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Is public comment? Is there anyone here that would like to speak in public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the council. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I'd like a motion to, I make a motion to approve ordinance 23-13.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Veach, seconded by Councilor or Vice Mayor Adderholt. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, Counselor Beach,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt,
Aye.
Counselor Woodson,
Aye.
Counselor King,
Aye.
Mayor Allers, aye. Vote carries unanimously. Next is ordinance 23-13, administrative setback variances. This is a final reading and public hearing, an ordinance of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, amending chapter 34, article 2, division 6, section 34-268, administrative setback variances, providing for severability, codification, scrivener's errors, conflicts of law, and an effective date. Sarah?
Good morning, Sarah Probst with Community Development. Several months ago, Town Council adopted language that would allow certain administrative variances. The focus of that ordinance was primarily on the cottage lots. Since that time, staff has recognized an error in the language that requires all administrative variances to meet the criteria that homes applying for administrative variances can only be for the square footage that was previously constructed and may only be a single story. That specific criteria was only intended to apply for the administrative variance for cottage lots. The language before you today clarifies that the square footage and single story are only applicable to the request for an administrative variance to rebuild a cottage on a non-conforming lot. Additionally, the proposed amendment removes a limitation that would disallow property owners from adding a story above the first floor of an existing home if the existing home does not meet today's setbacks. This is the second and final hearing, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for Sarah? Thank you,
Thank
Sarah.
you.
We'll open it up for public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on the administrative setback variances? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Is there a motion for ordinance 23-14?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 23-14.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Counselor Veach, seconded by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Counselor Veach,
Aye.
Counselor Woodson,
Aye.
Mayor Allers, aye. Vice Mayor Adderholt,
Aye.
Counselor King.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next is the administrative agenda, Resolution 23-124, RFQ-20-06-ADA, STA number 20, Post Ian Residential Canal Debris Assessment Survey. A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving an agreement between the town and the Coastal Engineering Consultants, Inc. for debris data collecting and assessment survey in Town of Fort Myers Beach canals for a cost not to exceed $42,020 and providing for an effective date. Chad?
Morning, everyone. Chad Schutz, environmental staff for the town. We still have a lot of debris out in the canals. The state did a great job and removed a significant amount of debris. But we need to go out and assess that. The best way to do that, given the turbidity and lack of clarity in the water, is to do a side scan. Coastal engineers will combine this with their side scans of the mooring field in one operation to assess the debris down in the water and give us a report for contractors to go and remove the debris. Any questions?
Questions for Chad? Counselor King?
None.
Vice Mayor Adderholt? Counselor Woodson?
No.
Counselor V?
So this is still kind of part of the FEMA cleanup process to just identify what's left so it can be picked up under the FEMA.
Yeah, we took a gentleman out from FEMA 2-3 weeks ago, and I think we either bumped or something got tied up on the prop probably nearly a dozen times. So yeah, this would be my understanding is this cost of this assessment and the debris pickup would hopefully be covered by FEMA.
And will this help at all with formulating a plan for dredging canals if we come up with a process for that?
Dredging may be a little bit of a separate, it overlaps a bit. You know, material from the beach is considered debris into the canal, so that it may have some overlap with that material being dredged, especially to restore conveyance in our stormwater systems. But dredging in and of itself may be a different topic.
All right, thanks.
Councilor Veach, Mayor, if I may, we're working with FEMA right now to try to get a plan together where they will reimburse us for some of the dredging, but we're in those steps now.
Thank you for that update. Any other questions for Chad? Thank you, Chad. Any further discussion by council? Is there a motion for resolution 23-124?
So moved.
Got a motion by Councilor Veach. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Woodson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Next is resolution 23-134, Upland Services, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving an agreement between the town and Matanzas Inn for upland services for the Matanzas mooring field for an annual cost not to exceed $36,000. Who from staff is? Chad's here again. Go
Hey,
Chad.
morning. Chad Schutz again. So, yep, our harbor management plan provides for bathrooms and showers for renters in the mooring field to reduce the impacts associated with gray water discharges from vessels, including phosphates, reduced dissolved oxygen, and other nutrient-rich discharges that cause degradation of our water quality within the waters of the town. So, as we're coming back online with the mooring field, providing these to our renters will be a valuable service. As you know, we are getting the mooring balls east of the field reinstalled soon, and these the current 13 are ready to be in service that are north of the Matanzas Pass Bridge.
Questions for Chad? Go ahead.
So Chad, this would normally go through the Anchorage Advisory Committee, correct? Is that just the timing issue? Is it a timing issue that?
I'm not sure, just to get approval for the funding?
I think we've got a meeting on Wednesday, just to keep everybody a brief or abreast of what's happening and so forth. I mean, may want to give everybody an update on
Absolutely.
Wednesday. Yeah, and just even in advance, in a perfect world, if we could run that through the advisory committee, just as a heads up. This is the part of Matanzas, the separate building from the main office, just for people who are watching. And you mentioned showers and bathrooms, but there's also a facility, or there was a facility there that accommodated washers and dryers. Is that not part of this, or is that, are we going to?
Yeah, laundry facilities are included in there.
Okay, so laundry and showers and bathrooms.
Yes, sir.
So the folks in the mooring field will have those benefits then as for participating in our mooring field.
Yes, sir.
And the goal is to have those up and running just in a ballpark sense when?
So the 13 balls will be ready for November 1st, and the remaining balls we're hoping for by Christmas time.
And I'm sorry, Chad, I meant the facilities themselves.
The upland facilities by November 1st.
November 1st, okay, thank you.
And this cost is for that the term from November 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2025.
Yes, sir. So sorry,
says September
25? No, this would be just for fiscal year 24. Apologies. This is for 1 year.
30th. Okay, so the math wasn't adding up.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, one more last question. This is a challenge really for the town manager and for you, Chad. It was always urban legend, for lack of a better term, that the fees we got from the mooring field covered the cost of the services that the town provided to the customers. As we go forward, and I know things are crazy and volatile right now post-Ian, but let's see if we can at some point quantify if it's a sort of a break-even proposition. I just think that was always we never saw data on it, and we never were for sure as to whether it matched, and that was certainly the goal, because obviously we want that helps us then as we price the services and so forth. So just in the back of your head, again, I know things are completely amiss right now, but that should be our eventual goal, is to provide these services at the actual cost. So the town itself, although there's benefits to the town, is not perceived as subsidizing these facilities, but the people who use them pay for them. And I think they're happy to do so as long as it's balanced. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's our goal is
Yep.
to have a break even, without any additional cost to the town.
Very good. Thank you, Chad.
Any other questions for Chad?
Move to approve resolution
Just
20.
hold on a
Oops,
second.
Sorry.
I
Try.
just want to say, Chad, so with, not to read ahead here, but B and C, with these two, then we can officially reopen the mooring field.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now, Counselor King?
You sure? Move to approve resolution 23-134 Upland Services.
There's a motion from Counselor King. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Veach. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Item C, Resolution 23-133, Mobile Harbor Master Office, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving an agreement between the town and Cool Bins of Greater Naples to lease a mobile office for a cost of $88,305.99 and providing for an effective date. Chad? Is this still you?
Yes, so, yep, sorry. Chad Schutz, Town of Fort Myers Beach. So this, the mooring field harbor master office was located in the condos across from Nervous Nellies. That facility is no longer available due to damage caused by Hurricane Ian. So our proposal was to have a mobile office in the right-of-way in a no parking area underneath the bridge. We found a spot that we think we can make work.
Is that kind of where that dumpster is now by Nervous Nellies? Is that what you're talking about?
No, there may be, I can send you a location map. I've got one made up that I can email you.
But I assume that's where you're going to be close to the waters.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Chad, is there a story behind this in terms of, is this a short-term fix? Are we hoping to go back to Harbor House when those repairs are made, or what, do we have a vision yet as to where this will end a year from now?
If I may, Vice Mayor, Frankie Kirkpatrick, Operations and Compliance Director. We're looking at a long-term solution. Right now, the Harbor House is not really figuring into that long-term solution. Just giving us a place to be right near the dinghy dock where people are coming in for those services, the upland services that we're providing, makes a lot more fiscal sense, and having not a permanent footprint in that area yet until we can figure out what we're going to be doing ourselves. That's why we kind of went down this road.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions for Chad or staff?
The cost, how long, is this just a one-time charge, or is this just for like a year then, or?
So that first month's cost is just a little over $1,000, and then it's a monthly of $599, and I think it's $150 to get it towed away after we're done. So that's basically an annualized cost is for that $8,305.
Thank you.
And this is, did it say 8x8?
8x20
8x20,
air
okay.
conditioned office and an 8x8 storage area is included with it.
Move approval of resolution 23-133.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Adderholt, seconded by Counselor Veach. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Next is final public comment. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Seeing none, we will close final public comment. Town managers items.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I have a couple of things. We do have, as directed at the last meeting, we have ULI coming into the next MMP meeting. There's another group that's reached out. I don't remember their names, but I
Scape.
might add them.
Escape.
Yes, they had reached out as well, so I will reach out to them to see if they're available for that meeting too, to talk about planning for the downtown area, for the old San Carlos area and other things. Also, in a minute, Frankie will give us a trailer update on the new town hall, the new town hall trailers in the park. The Jacobs Group, we've been working with them to bring them in to assist us and to kind of take over our process for permitting. And As of today, the first phase is to include the building official, which he's already on board, and 3 additional permit techs, which we kind of had a lot. We took them away and it kind of dipped, and now we're bringing it back up. And the next phase, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, will be to start bringing in the permit plan reviewers and to bring in inspectors. So we've got a kind of like a 2-phase, but they're going to be back to back, moving really quickly, so we can stabilize in that area with a new leadership group and hopefully see, and the plan is to see an improvement in the time for permitting, the follow-up, just the whole schedule. We're reviewing the policies and the procedures in there to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to serve our public. And like a couple of changes you made today with the one ordinance is really going to be a big help as well. The other thing.
Before you move on from that,
Yeah.
Andy, can you kind of talk about the costs? I've had some people concerned that this change is going to cost more money. Based on what we're doing now and what it's going to cost?
We really don't anticipate an increase in the cost of what we're currently paying, strictly because we're using a couple of groups on the East Coast. We'll be replacing those groups. They'll still be under the contract. We'll be replacing them, bringing all this closer to us in-house for the most part. This group works with Bonita Springs as well. But we anticipate the cost is going to pretty much be flat. Shouldn't, and maybe even a little cost savings. I don't know, because of the timing. Yeah, you're talking about time studies. The vice mayor was just talking about, a cost benefit analysis. I think, the benefit from the time aspect might be an unhidden cost that nobody really measures. That, if we can get things done in 3 days versus 3 weeks, that's a huge cost savings we don't think about. We can get more stuff done in those 3 weeks than we can if we're spreading it out. So we'll be working towards that end to make sure that we keep our costs low.
And I'm sorry, did you say we're getting close to the agreement to be signed? Or?
That is correct. We thought it would be late last week, but he just told me on Saturday that it'd probably be sometime first part of this week.
Very good. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I guess before I turn it over to Frankie to talk about a couple of things, one thing I want everyone to know, we continue to get things off the beach, debris. The waves over, I believe, last Thursday and Friday, really churned up a lot. And over the weekend, our guys were out picking up a lot of debris on the beach. I want people to be mindful and be safe, understanding there could be sharp objects under the water that you're not seeing, and just be very, very careful with your time in the water. I know it's that time of the year where we're going to be getting more and more people. So just keeping these public service announcements in front of our visitors and our residents, and we continue to go down the beach. Frankie's done a great job with staff to make sure they're continually sweeping the beach to see what's out there and to bring things in. We've had divers go out a little bit, our divers to go out just to look underneath and to see what's there. So we're really working to make this, a positive environment for everybody as they go out. Frank, if you'll update with the trailer.
Mr. Town Manager, before you switch off on that, I understand that the town had a drone and Austin would run that drone up and down the shoreline. If there's a really clear day, because for the most part, the beach is pretty clear and the water's great. Is that drone functional? And if so, on a good clear day, if Austin could run that drone up and down the beach in a shallow end just to show how clean the water is and how clear it is, then we could put that on our website. I think that would give some comfort to folks and also just sort of update them on the status of the beach.
Right, we can do that.
Good morning, Frankie Kropacek, Operations and Compliance Director. Where we sit with the trailers right now, they're all in production. I'll have a timeline and a milestone for completion and installation into our new facility, probably within the next week or so. But all groups, so the quad trailer, which will be acting as our new town hall residence, is in production. Both of the double wides are currently in production, and so is the triple wides. It's all coming out of Georgia, and they'll all be hopefully delivered within a day or two of each other.
Thank you, sir.
Frankie, when do you anticipate those being actually here installed and ready to go?
I'm holding them to the November 1st, end of this month.
Well,
that's kind of the timeline that we've had since we started, and that's the timeline that we're holding the manufacturer to.
Well, my question is, when does our lease terminate with the fire district on that property. Are we going to go over that? Has there been any discussion with the fire district about?
It has not, and
we
I
may-
was not aware of.
I don't know what the
that at
exact
this
date
point.
was of the agreement, but sometime in November. Okay.
We
Okay.
will definitely be.
I just want to make sure we're not violating contract, or we're working with them to make sure that we're rowing in the same direction.
As well as us, we agree. That's why we're kind of pushing to get this, and we'll have staff working to start removing as much as we can off the property and that type of thing. So there's not an issue or a concern there. Also, we've got several projects we're working on. We continue to work on the Bay Oaks Rec Center. We're pushing FPL to get the transformer powered up, because we have all of our electrical ready to go and ready to get everything powered up in the park. I'm not sure if that same transformer or if the school is having the same issue, but I have been reaching out to FPL as late as Saturday with another email asking them to put this at the top of the list. They keep telling us 2 weeks, but Jeff's doing a great job working with them. Also, we have the grand opening next Wednesday. It was some confusion, but due to Major League Baseball, the playoffs and all the things, the World Series and all that, there was some conflicts with scheduling. So again, on Wednesday, the 25th.
I think the new date is the 26th. No?
25th. It's a Wednesday. It
Boy, I
was
wrote-
the 26th.
Well, I wrote that down completely backwards. Okay.
No, it was going to be the 26th, but there were some scheduling problems on the Major League Baseball side. It's a whole thing.
That's
Keep
why
keep it in pencil, by the way. Yeah.
That's why pencils have erasers.
That's right. That's right. Other projects we continue to work on are very high level things with the pool. We're still working there. We'll bring some more information to you probably at the next meeting to start moving forward with some things in that area. We continue to work with stormwater. We're going to meet with staff this afternoon about the duck bills. There's some things that help with backflow into the stormwater system when the tide rises. So we're really on top of a lot of projects right now. So we're not really resting on any laurels. We've had some great events. Thank you, Jeff, staff, and everyone that participated, and thank you, elected body, for coming out to the event last night. It was well received and well attended. So it was a great evening that, had a lot of wind, a little dancing. The wind was kind of pushing me around, but I can't really control that sometimes. But I want to introduce Adrian LeBlanc. We've had some changes in the staff of Tidal Basin, and Compton's no longer with us. So he's bringing up additional staff so he can introduce all the new people that we are working with, and we hate to see Ann go, but we're really pleased to see this group come in. They've really been hitting the ground running, and I every time I turn and go around a corner, they're standing there. So that's a good thing. I like the fact that they're plugged in and pushing us to give them information and do some of those things. So introduce yourselves, please.
Adrian LeBlanc with Tidal Basin Consulting. I'm project manager with them, been with them for years. Been working with Andy and Frankie for the last few weeks, and we've been getting a lot accomplished, especially we've had some changes also on FEMA side. It's not under our control. That was FEMA changed some personnel on their end with the PDMG. And the new PDMG has made some big waves and pushed forward on a lot of projects. So it's made a lot of moving. We're also just here to support y'all with anything y'all need. And this is Heather.
Good morning. I'm
Chad, before you leave in the back there, I've got one quick thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just saw Chad leaving.
Okay, sorry.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Heather.
Move up,
Pritchett.
Heather.
I just
Heather,
started.
move up to the microphone there.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Heather Pritchett. I'm with Tidal Basin. I am the project lead for Fort Myers Beach now. Little background on myself. I came from the state of New Jersey. I worked with the state police through Sandy. So I'm hoping I can give you guys, all the support and knowledge base that I got in the last 10 years working with them. So I'm here to support in any way. Any questions? I have a lot of background. I've been doing this for about 20 years now. So, and I came from the state of Florida. I worked here during Charlie, Francis, Jean, Ivan, and Wilma. So
Now you're just name dropping.
Can either of you give us an update on obligated projects? Have we have we gotten any further obligated projects from FEMA?
We sent out the new report on Friday to Frankie on all the projects for the monthly
You gotta move
report.
up.
Oh, sorry. Sent out the new report to Frankie on Friday. Actually, I think that all, to y'all as a team, we sent it out. But no new obligations. We were working towards obligation on a lot of the projects. So we have some documentation that FDM just requested this morning and FEMA that we're collecting this afternoon as soon as council meeting's over to try to get that moved forwards. So
Okay. Thank
that's
you.
our goal, is to get everything obligated as quickly as possible for all.
Okay. Any other questions? Kettle Basin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Just another public service announcement. Don't forget your time change, the first Saturday of November. Fall back.
Andy, before we let you go, I just, because since Chad's sitting over there, and maybe Frank knows the answer to one of it's a two-part question. Chad, could you come up and just give a brief update? I was running along the beach the other day and I saw Austin on the beach, but you were actually working the homeowners there to try to get them to sign easements and talk to folks about the I think it was the emergency berm for the critical wildlife area. I see a lot of activity on the beach. Could you just give folks an update as to what's happening?
Yes, sir. Morning, Chad Shoots again. So we have restarted that Cat B FEMA funded berm from right now. It went from Leonardo Arms to south to Suncaper. And we are going to be hopping over and completing the rest down to around Mr. Mitch's house. And again, coming from Islands End is already done, and finishing off the rest of that with in front of Carlos Point. Those last remaining segments are still contingent on getting some more funding from FEMA for some more sand. So we're working. We're going to put all the sand that we have out there, and then hopefully it'll all be seamless. FEMA and FDM will approve our additional funding, and we'll continue to roll with more sand.
And is that trucked in sand? Is that coming at the beach access between Riviera and Leonardo, or is it coming through Newton Park?
The sand's coming from Newton Park as well as from Wyndham, and it is using that access from Riviera to get down to the beach.
You may have just answered my second question. Then the ability for Newton Park to have interim or temporary restrooms is we're still waiting on the not the renourishment, but the emergency berm work to be completed before that could happen.
So Newton Park's going to be a staging area for some time. It'll be a staging area during the renourishment. I'm happy we can work with Jeff and the town manager to see if we could partition that to have some temporary restrooms and facilities, if that's the will of the council.
That would be worth exploring. And then just so I understand that, of course, the renourishment paradigm shifts because we'll be pumping sand out of the Gulf onto the beach, but you still need the Newton Park just for trucks to smooth it out and move it around. Is that?
That, and we are anticipating some more trucking projects with monies that we've received from the state.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just a kind of a question for Andy on the restrooms in Newton Park, the timeline. Now that's something we put in for a TD. We're going to put in for a TDC funding request. What's the timeline on that?
I think we're going to, Jeff Hauge has the correct answer for that one.
Jeff Hauge, Culture Parks and Rec Director at Town of Fort Myers Beach. So we did apply for it and we received upwards of $40,000 for trailers for Newton Park. So we can have that conversation at any point. They are in TDC funding, so it won't be obviously any cost to the town. So we are looking at that and options to do some programming at Newton Beach, kind of around the state's work out there, because part of the land trust agreement or grant that we get requires us to do 24 sessions a year of programming on Newton as well. So we're looking at all options, maybe a parcel where we can use and have some planting and native planting there, and some signage, and then some beach walks eventually. So
Jeff, since we have the funding, the quicker we could begin to implement the restroom strategy and also maybe bifurcate it so we don't impact the renourishment work that has to be done. But maybe if we could do both and have enough room for the trucks to get through, but still have those restrooms. It's really the only restrooms close to the south end of the island. And I'm sure a lot of the folks who live along the beach, as well as the people who walk, run, bike on the beach, it's great to have a place so people's yards and other places don't get used inappropriately.
Yeah, we've had initial conversations about cleaning out where the parking was to have additional parking there too, for the access and for Newton. So those are 2 or 3 things that we're working on getting there very soon.
Great, thank you.
So Jeff, you mentioned 40,000. How long does that cover us for with a trailer type thing?
I'll have to look back. I didn't
very
write the grant, but it take probably a while. I think it was calculated in for the fiscal year because we knew it was going to be some time. So hopefully have some nice trailers for 40,000 for the year.
One last note is we're also working with FP&L to get electric drop to those areas for the air-conditioned restroom facilities.
What's the status on the one behind us, the Palm View trailer that was lost in the storm? Is that going to be replaced or is it going to stay?
I don't have information on that. Huh? From TDC? Yeah, from TDC, we're getting funding for that one too. So hopefully soon. I don't know. Jason was working on that a little bit more than I was.
All right, thanks. Yep. That's all you got? Okay. Town attorney items.
Nothing.
I have one thing that I'd like to bring up to you. You know, we had several people that have come in and talked about the canals and the uses of commercial activities in those canals. Have you had a time, you or Sarah, to take a look at the codes to maybe give us any information on what you found?
Yes, Sarah and I had a conference call, and I just want to turn this over to Sarah because she has all the information for you.
Okay.
So currently, the land development code, the zoning ordinance allows use on essentially every property type, every zoning type other than residential single family and residential conservation to have a dock for use by water taxi as a permitted use. So that means that if there is a canal, there is potentially the ability by right to have a dock that a water taxi can use on that canal. And that's what the code currently contains.
Is a water taxi defined? Is it the same as, I mean, because I always assumed like a difference between a taxi and a bus terrestrially or is quite significant. So is there like a limit to how many people are on a water taxi?
I believe it actually says water taxi or water shuttle.
No,
It doesn't, it's not specific to water taxi.
Does it give any restrictions on the size of a canal or anything like that? It's just a blanket.
It's just a blanket allowed permitted use. And there are not good definitions in the code for a water taxi, but it does say water taxi or water shuttle.
Yes, it does say water shuttle also. So it probably, it's not restricted in size.
So I'm assuming under then Senate Bill 250, this is not something we could change policy-wise.
That is correct, not until next year.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that update. I don't know that it's going to be received very well with the public, but
But I do think, you know, there are other, like it's, the captain is responsible for being able to safely operate. Right, so he's got to be able to get a boat that can fit and operate safely within the confines of the canal.
well, you would certainly hope a captain of a boat would know how much the water, how much their draft is and what they could turn around and what they can't turn around. But I hear you correct saying that there's nothing in our language that limits the size of the vessel or the amount of passengers.
There's no specifics within our code that define what water taxi or water shuttle is.
Okay.
So I have another question too for our attorney. Is there any update on the Prasad case or the Key Estero issues going on? Do we have any updates on that?
We are in the midst of negotiations right now to try to work it out.
On both of them?
on both of them. Yes, with the attorneys.
Any other questions for Becky? Thank you, Becky. Sarah? Council member items and reports. Counselor King, start with you.
Well, there's another possible merger that's being discussed. This time it's between the Lee County Metropolitan Planning Organization, which I sit on representing Fort Myers Beach, and merging that with the Collier County Metropolitan Planning Agency. At our last executive committee meeting last Wednesday, other metro municipalities will express their disapproval to the Lee County delegation on October 30th. Mayor, I just wanted to make you aware of that. I don't have any details. I'm not sure how this would play out. We could probably lose our seat and representation there. And I didn't know if the council wanted to take a position or not.
Well, you're the ones that sit in that meeting every day. I guess I'd lean on your advice. If you think it's going to be a crucial thing to us or a beneficial thing to keep it separate, what is your read on it?
My read on it is it would not be beneficial to us.
And John, did they give you, is there any kind of reasoning behind why they want to merge these?
The feeling is that most of the money is going to Collier, and Lee County was not getting the money that they thought was deserved.
So it was a way for potentially for Lee County to get more funds?
Potentially by merging, yes. But my understanding is Collier County is not in support of this either.
So what's driving it? Who's driving it?
Well, it would be at the state level, state representatives.
So neither county is in favor of this merger?
Not that I am aware of, as again, as we discussed at the executive committee meeting. I know Bonita Springs is against it. We'll be speaking out against that on the 30th, as well as Mayor Gunter at Cape Coral.
I'm certainly not opposed to it if you believe, and it sounds like other municipalities don't think this is going to be a good thing.
Correct.
I said, without having all the information, I certainly would take your lead on this. Does anyone else have any objections to that?
I just question where all these mergers are coming from all of a sudden with no notice, no warning, no nothing. And I don't know, is this something that if we are going to support not merging, should that also be included in our letter for the legislature?
Well, if it's the same one, I don't know. It might be a separate.
It would be a separate name.
Separate thing.
I think, Mr. Mayor, if you're comfortable with it, the time you get to present, I don't know what else you want to discuss, but just something quick that we would not be in favor of it would suffice in front of the delegation on the 30th, I believe.
I would support Councilman King working with the attorney to draft a letter.
Fine with me?
Yep, I agree.
You okay with doing that, Councilor King?
Sure am.
Vice Mayor Adderholt, you okay? And then once we get these letters, if we can send them to the delegation before the 30th, so that they have it, we'll certainly talk about it when we get up to the podium, but just to make sure they have it in advance.
Yes.
What else you got, Councilor King?
That's it. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
By way of update, Councilor Woodson asked about the ad hoc committee for the beach school. And I'd asked the superintendent for a meeting, and fortunately we've scheduled one for this coming Thursday. It's a Zoom call, and we're going to get an update on the beach school. And so I'll have a full report to the council at our next meeting on the status of the beach school and the various dynamics of the interlocal agreement as we move forward. So we'll know more after Thursday. This is just an issue. I don't mean it to be territorial or anything. I'm just trying to get some guidance. Mr. Town Manager, you had mentioned that potentially there's some discussion with one of our consultants, maybe our former interim town manager, who's looking at dredging the canal, dredging of canals in the aggregate, and looking for some kind of a financial funding source for that and modeling that. And I'm just wondering jurisdictional wise, we now have a full Anchorage Advisory Committee. And I just want to make sure we have enough on our plate. But at the same time, I know Murph has opined on the canals as well. I just want to get a sense direction wise, if that's something, because I think that issue will become a very sensitive one, an important one, quite honestly, that at least in my preliminary conversations with Keith, which have not been recent. I just want to see if my colleagues have any sense jurisdictionally, if that's something that should fall to the Anchorage Advisory Committee, or is there a different advisory committee that should have some interaction on that as we do the preliminary discussion and research? And I welcome your input on that, Councilor Veach, as well, since you're
Well,
on Murph.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to, be territorial either, but my understanding is the Anchorage Committee is strictly about the asset of the mooring field. That there were some other things that came up, and they if it didn't have to do with the mooring field, they essentially weren't getting involved.
Well, I would yield to our, I don't expect the town, I do expect our town attorney to have that memorized, the Anchorage Advisory Committee's jurisdictional responsibilities. I'm sure you could just do it off the top of your head. But if you could check that real quick, or maybe Amy could check it while we're having our conversation to see if it is limited, because I know we have a full committee now. We've got a bunch of new members who have lots of energy and good ideas, and I just want to make sure that we keep them fully engaged. And by the way, just by way of conversation, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but it's extremely preliminary at this point. But I know our previous interim town manager Keith is looking at a dynamic where we could collectively get the canals together, or the appropriate canals. Some might be private, it might not work. Some might see an advantage to it, hopefully in a voluntary way, where there would be some kind of a fee assessed on your property taxes that would help find a vendor, and maybe with some state and federal grants as well to help offset the cost. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Town Manager, if I go astray here. But then we could hire a vendor, again, with multiple canals, hiring the vendor, so you have the economies of scale and get a better price, and then you've got that regular maintenance of the canals that's funded in part by the canal owners, some by grants, maybe some by the town. We'll have to figure all that out. But it's a way to give some regular maintenance to those canals, because I know a lot of those canals are in rough shape post-Ian, and they were quite frankly, some of them in rough shape pre-Ian as well. So I know that's all being discussed. So if that doesn't fit in the Anchorage Advisory Committee's domain, that's fine.
Do you want me to
Yes,
tell you
please.
what
Yeah,
they're,
yeah.
okay. The Anchorage Advisory Committee shall advise the town council concerning all matters relevant to the management and use of the waters of the town for mooring and anchoring. The Anchorage Advisory Committee shall prepare and submit the Matanzas Harbor Management Plan and any amendments thereto for review and approval by the town council, and make recommendations for the establishment of managed municipal anchorages in mooring fields where warranted by objective evidence of environmental damage or user conflicts or any other topics as assigned by the town council.
Well, that's a mouthful. I wonder
Yeah,
if that
it
first
is.
sentence might give us some leeway, but no, you want to?
Yeah, basically, it's under the code, they're vested with the authority to deal with municipal anchorages and mooring fields. But they can be assigned other topics by the town council.
I think that's the wild card, or, all the committees have that, or topics assigned. We want them to study,
Well, I wonder if it makes sense. Not that long ago, we changed the name of Murph to add environmental to theirs. Maybe this is the time, since we did not have a canal dredging program in place, that is something that makes sense to me to add into the scope of the Anchorage Advisory Committee. Those are the people that use the canals every day. I think it would behoove us to allow them the ability to take a look at this, try to formulate a plan, work with staff to try to come up with something that we can move forward, because we're going to need it going forward. Should we ever have another issue with another storm, we have to have a plan in place to be eligible for any kind of FEMA reimbursement. So I would not be opposed to adding this to however we have to do it policy wise to go through to add this scope of work to the Anchorage Advisory Committee.
well, just to remember that, Murph is the marine resources. So it's about specifically the environment just allowed it to be more terrestrial, but it's responsible for the waters. So, you know, I appreciate trying to balance the load between different committees. But I think that this, you know, by at least the document that the way I understand it, it's clearly under MRF. Now, if MRF and the Anchorage Community want to work together and trade this off, I think it might be good to leave it to the committees to decide.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise the issue. I know the people on the Anchorage Advisory Committee are hardcore boaters, and they know the canals as well as anybody, and that's their specialty. But again, I'll yield to the will of the council. I'm not looking for trouble, because this could be a challenging issue, but it could be a really a boon to the canals too, the overall health of the canals and maintenance of the canals. So maybe we hold off on this until Keith comes forward with a proposal, and we know a little bit more. But I just want to at least raise the issue so people could begin thinking about it.
Yeah, it does bring up another point, Jim, and that's that there's a lot of places where our committees overlap. And we've done in the past, we've had a joint meeting with all the chairs of the committees and town council, and I found those to be very informative for everybody. And so when that's a chance when committee chairs can sit there and talk about things like this that potentially overlap. And if the council is you know favorable for that idea, I found that to be a pretty productive meeting.
Well, I think when we looked at BORCAB and CELCAB, it wasn't just the chairs of the committees. I mean, we literally sat together as whole committees and made recommendations. We talked through who is more appropriately aligned to different areas and that type of thing. But it was the entire group. It wasn't just the chairs. And then we brought that to the council based on the agreements that we reached. So that might be
That's a good option too.
something to look at.
Yeah. I do know some things, like you could also argue that the problem with the canals is a public safety issue. I mean, there's a lot of different committees that could potentially have some input into the state of the canals.
That's all I've got, Mr. Mayor.
Council Woodson?
Yeah, I've got a few things. So after our comp plan meeting the other day with the LPA and council, I had a lot of conversations with people that are in the process of looking at plans and submitting plans and that type of thing. And I think right now, basically we didn't change anything. And so because of that, we're looking at, when we go into negotiations of all this, we're looking at what public benefits do you provide? And I don't think we've yet to define by priority what public benefits are. And I'm thinking that might be an M&P discussion, or at some point putting something together that literally outlines what are those. We throw around the water taxi, we throw around traffic and pedestrian walkovers, and I would add canal dredging to this now too, is having different developments start funding or looking into something about funding that. Infrastructure is huge. So I think we're at the point where we can't just discuss individually, but maybe we have to have some kind of framework on what actually qualifies as a public benefit. And it could be a lot of different things, but to brainstorm on that, I think it would be a really good M&P discussion going forward.
I think that's a great idea. I'd like to keep it. I think it's a great conversation. We could make a list. I hate to, and I'm not saying you're suggesting this, but I don't want to create a point system, or because I want to keep it general enough where we have a little flexibility. But I think it's a great idea to begin to give some direction as to what we're looking for.
And I would ask concur to have the discussion. I think I kind of, I'm on the other side of this from Jim, that I think that clarity about what these are worth us is more important than open flexibility, because a lot of times when you leave it open, then people get expectations.
I think there's a consensus to add this to an up-and-coming M&P so we can discuss it. We won't hash it all out here, but it's probably going to be a lengthy discussion. So can you put that on upcoming MMP?
Thank you. Another is just a question now as we come into season and still don't have the lighting, but I know that the town manager is working on that. But community policing. I mean, that was something that we had in our budget. We approved it. We have not moved forward on it. And I think coming into season now, I know I've mentioned it to our town manager. I know that he's had some conversations, I believe, but I just think it's critical now. We've already approved it. It's critical to get going on it before we get into season. And the last thing I had, I spent the majority of my day on Friday at the strategic planning session for the Horizon Council, which was really interesting. It brought up two things in my mind. The issues that came from the Horizon Council are not anything different than what we've been talking about all the way through as we look at buildings coming in, the infrastructure. We look at our workforce, how to attract and retain. They're looking at housing, not just workforce housing, but housing in general. What is happening to our area and the explosion of population. Also looking at attracting businesses here, identifying gaps of businesses and needs that we have, and almost putting together a marketing PR campaign, image boosting campaign of Southwest Florida, and kind of taking us away from the retirement Florida, where everybody goes to retire, but come here and work and play and then retire. So there were all these conversations going on about it, which I thought were very beneficial, but it's not really anything different than we talk about every day. And so being able to have input on that. But it also brought up, and I know we've talked about it in the past, but a strategic planning meeting for the council. Now that we've gotten through our budgets and we know what kind of money we have and direction, and just having that kind of offsite planning, facilitated planning meeting. I mean, this was totally facilitated by an outside person. It didn't get into anything about voting or anything that would break sunshine laws or anything like that, but it was more of priorities and strategic direction of town, of image, of building, of where we want to be, of attracting businesses. We're facing all the same things. So I just think now is a really critical time to be looking at those items. And that's all I got.
And I would just, because I don't think you really necessarily had for consensus. I know that there was we regularly do a strategic plan. Nobody in this council has been through one. There was one at the council before the three of us were elected. And I honestly never looked through it. I don't really, if it's a document, it's got to be, I guess, referenced to really have some kind of value. I think the exercise itself could be valuable just because there's so much change. But I will tell you one thing that I find really interesting is that I know that a lot of times in places I've lived where governments will work really hard to give all kinds of incentives for a business to relocate, like they did Hertz here and this kind of thing. I kind of think we're in an enviable position here on the beach where I don't think we have to give incentives for people to build on the beach. We're such, you look at what happens with property values, even houses have been destroyed and didn't seem to affect the property, the value of the property. So I think that, it kind of a different tone. We don't have to necessarily, you want to help people, but we don't have to necessarily make their dreams come true to get them to redevelop.
No, and I'm not even talking about giving incentives. I'm talking about what do we want to see? What do we need? What do we look at? And what do we need for our community to make our community better? What do the people want in our community? That's the kind of planning I was talking about. And if you're really going to do a strategic plan correctly, and of course this is corporate speak talking, but you review it every year. I mean, you put a strategic plan in place, you have your objectives, your goals, objectives, your tactics, and you look at it every year. What do we achieve? What did we succeed? Where do we need more work? So it becomes a working document and a planning document, if you will, for growth and structure.
Perhaps we need to bring that back to an M&P with, obviously, things have changed since the last time it was reviewed. And I think it would make sense to bring it back and have everybody take a look at it. We can discuss through it, to your point. I think it has to be a meeting, even though it's not something we may vote on at that time. I would believe that we have to have a publicly noticed meeting to, and maybe an MPO is the best place to have it.
Can we, Madam Clerk, if it's possible to, I've never seen that strategic plan that that Councilor Veach referenced that happened previous to the three of us being elected. Does it still exist, and could you send it around electronically to us?
I'm sure it still exists and I will send it to
Okay.
everybody.
Thank you.
Anything else, Councilor Woodson?
Nope, that's it.
Councilor Veach?
No, I had a few things, but Andy covered them very strategically in his items, so.
Well, I have just a couple things. I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about one of them or not, but since Councilor Woodson brought it up, I also have had several conversations with people since our joint meeting. And the message that was taken out of that meeting, I think is a little different depending on where you are, whether you're a resident or whether you're a developer. And in speaking with both, I tried to make it clear, although there was a message sent with the comp plan and not making any changes, I think there was also a message sent that there's a willingness to listen. We understand things have to be different than what they were before. I don't think any of us are naive, and I certainly don't want to speak for any of you, so if you feel I am, please let me know. I don't think any of us are naive enough to think that, the cottages are coming back. We all know things are going to have to be higher. They're going to have to be built stronger. And that's going to present some challenges for some of these developments. And I don't want the message to come out of that there is not a willingness from this council to look at things. We still encourage people to come forth with developments. We understand that the restrictions that are in place are difficult, but I think we tried to point out in that meeting that there is a path to be able to do some of the things, no matter what size of, whether you're a small mom and pop or you're a big corporation, there is a path to be able to build things that work, that make sense within the community and fit the needs and the wants for both sides. So I just wanted to put that out there that, sometimes when you watch meetings, you have to let the steam cool out of your ears before you go back and watch it a second time and listen with an open mind and not just specifically on one thing that maybe doesn't agree with you. Everybody, I think, seems to get that. I went back and watched the meeting again myself, and I certainly thought that was a message that was relayed from the council and from the LPA, that there's a willingness to want to move forward and want to work with people. We didn't change the rules that were in place before, but everybody has the same vision. We want to make this town as vibrant as it can. In places where it makes sense, but we couldn't change, in my opinion, I don't think we could change the rules and just make it an open plea for anyone to do whatever they want, whenever they want. And I think that there was two messages sent there. I guess that's the whole point of what I'm trying to say. So I encourage anyone who thinks that the town of Fort Myers Beach is wanting to go back to the 40s and 50s to rewatch that. To understand what was said, to listen to what was said, because I think all of us several times encourage staff to come forward with things in the land development code to help us entice people to want to come and build and make it beneficial for themselves as well as the residents in the town. So please go back and take a look at it this time with a different mindset and see if you come out with the same conclusion that I did. The other thing I have is I've really been struggling this, Chief, through the entire meeting on how I'm going to word it. Chief and I spoke this morning about the land swap, and a lot of things, again, I hate to keep saying it, but a lot of things have changed with floodplain standards, things like that have shown some challenges to the fire district side to be able to build something in a critical infrastructure within the Linwall Wall, which is the wave action and all of that we've heard so much about, that really limits their ability to build on the town hall property. I can't say publicly that it's a mutual parting of ways, but I certainly understand it. And we have a very good relationship with the chief and the commissioners and the fire district in general. And I don't want to be one that stands in the way of public safety. And this could potentially hold up the building of that facility to replace what they lost. So again, although I don't feel it's mutual, we certainly would, but to his point and to the point in general that we don't know where town hall is going to be yet. We don't have a specific use for that. They do have a public safety specific use that makes more sense to them now through the changes through the FEMA maps as well as complications for waves and things like that, that the property that they currently own makes the most sense for them to build on. So I don't want to be the one that makes the decision, but we'll put it out there that it makes sense for public safety wise, as well as timing, that they're further along in their design and able to try to move forward faster with getting that asset back for the community than we are. So I guess at this time, I would ask if the council members are okay with withdrawing the plans to trade the properties.
And I don't think it's ever been officially approved, so I have no problem with it ever
It-
working.
it
It's got to work,
hasn't, but I just, yeah, you're right.
It's got to work for both sides, and we want you guys back and stronger than ever on the island. So
So I guess this is the first I've heard this. So could you just, maybe since the chief is here, are you saying they would like to withdraw or we want to withdraw?
Well, I think, again, I can't say it's a mutual withdrawing, because I think that land could be beneficial to the town down the road. But again, I don't want to stand in the way. So technically, it would be a mutual understanding that we would withdraw from the trade and the benefit of the community as a whole. But personally, I felt that we could still try to make something worth, but I don't want to stand in the way of the fire district in getting that service back to the community. Until, I mean, if we had concrete plans on what we were going to do, I'd maybe stand ground a little bit more, but
And I'm
they've been very good with working with us back and forth to try to make this happen. And with the design that they have to design, that makes sense. It's very restricted on the current town hall property.
Okay, I guess since the chief is here, I would ask unanimous consent to proceed out of order because I'm just confused in that I thought that they were going to sell that property, but once we made the trade and go somewhere else. So is there an
Yeah,
update?
I'm okay with it, and I think Chief can speak to that better than I can. If you'd like to.
Yeah, I just haven't heard any of the news. So
No, yeah, and that's my fault. But
I'm
I think
I'm
I think
certainly
it comes
open
better
to it,
from the
yeah.
chief than it does from me.
For the record, Scott Worth with the Fire District Fire Chief. And you're right, the mayor's taking, saying it's his fault, it's really not his fault. So I just recently tried to reach out. If I can go back though and kind of give a history, I think it'll make some sense. So when we started talking about the trading of lands, it was at the same time that we were developing the plan to split our larger project into a fire station and then the admin building, taking that admin off island. At that time, our data tells us that Del Mar is the ideal place, travel distance-wise between the other two fire stations. So when we went into this and saying, how can we, help the town get two contiguous pieces of property, we were intending to sell off whichever piece we ended up with. The Lima line and other factors came into play, and if you look at that on the map, what happened is that it took all the parcels on the boulevard and it put them coastal, it made them coastal A instead of being AE. So for critical infrastructure facilities, what that means is I can't build an enclosed garage below 15 feet. It means I can't build a fire station on the seaward side of the Lima line. So we started working backwards and looking at the town hall property, knowing that we were working through the swap. And when we started citing about a 4,500 square foot footprint and trying to put it on the back of that property and use the part behind the church to do driveways and whatnot, and elevate those garages as high as we can, get them about 3 or 4 feet above the road, it started packaging everything in, and it almost became to the point where we weren't going to be able to get that piece there. So just over the weekend, I had sent a drawing, and it kind of shows that same 4,200 square foot footprint on Town Hall and on our property on Tops. So, and I had just sent that to the mayor. He didn't get to see it till this morning. So it is a tight time frame. Where we're at, the other factor for us is that FEMA is asking us, as they're working with us on the old fire station, they said, we need a site. We need to do the environmental, historical. We need to do these reviews and get going on the project. So for those reasons, it's kind of put it on. It's us that is trying to move forward with the fire station. And I've been working and trying to site a fire station on the town hall property, and it really just isn't working as well as I had hoped, which is, kind of making it less feasible to go ahead and do it there.
And so then, just so I understand, so the goal would then be for you to build the fire station on the Tops property then, is that what you're thinking?
Correct, yes.
Would you still consider, are you still thinking about selling the front part of the Tops property as well?
We will
Self-finance it?
probably strap those into two straps once we know how much we need. Same plan we were using for the larger project was we were going to figure out how much land we needed and then strap off the front for whatever use, whether it be to sell it off. But at this point, we're looking to just do the fire station on that property on the back part where we were.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other questions for the chief? Thanks, chief.
So before you take up, so I assume your plan is kind of like those original plan posed before, where you had to drive through from one street to the other on the back of that property.
Yes,
You're going back to what that plan was?
Yeah, we'll start working on the design of that with our architect. But yes, in my mind, I'd like to be able to come in and go back out. And that allows me to raise the station a little bit higher on our property than I would have been able to on the town hall property.
Yeah.
So I do want to say one of the things we were working on with for the storm was access. I know access between those two pieces was a concern for the town. I fully intend to keep that back alley that existed so that if you end up using town hall property, that you will still have access between the two across our property. So.
And I appreciate that, now the fire department will be pretty much adjacent to a town hall one way or the other.
Mhm.
And I think that in an emergency, I think that proximity would be beneficial to everybody too.
So I still believe that you have your property is 1/10 of an acre larger, ready to build. And I think if the chapel decides at some point that they're not going to be able to reconstruct, I think you guys have a real opportunity with your parcel as you have it. So.
Yeah, thanks,
But-
chief.
Thanks, chief.
I think it's important that what he was talking about, the Limwell line, is it's something we're going to get very familiar with because it's not just the fire chief and what they have to build along Estero Boulevard. It's going to have an effect on several properties, all properties essentially down Estero Boulevard. So as you start seeing some of these development things come in, I think you're going to see some things having to be pushed back a little further to be able to build so they don't have to build it up in the air. But that's coming down the road, but it's not a one-off thing just for the fire district. It's going to be for everyone.
Which is kind of ironic because, now with Senate Bill 250, we're not allowed to do anything more restrictive or cumbersome. But this new coastal A and the November last year, the November flood maps came out, certainly fill that gap.
Well, in this case, one's a federal and one is a state.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Anybody else have anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Counselor King.
I'll second.
Seconded by Counselor Veach. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at